Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for the Wrestling Bytes podcast? With your hosts, Tna Impact and Chris Young. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Wrestling Bytes podcast. I am your host, Tna Impact, with my co-host, as always, the best damn referee in the business, Mr. Chris Young. How are you doing tonight, my friend?
Hey, Pon, I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I just won money on the Super Bowl, and that is no joke. I had the spread on the Rams, so I'm pretty happy there. Pretty pumped up after a weekend of wrestling. I don't know about you, but
Absolutely. Anytime you get to see an indie show, it always puts you in a good mood.
yeah, if any of you got the opportunity to attend any of the indie shows that were going on this weekend, drop us a line. Send us a little review. We'll put you on the spot, man. But we're going to talk about that a little bit later, as well as a few topics that are definitely true and near to me, like the state of the independent wrestling in Michigan, from what I've seen in a perspective, and from what Chris has seen, as well as we're going to talk about calling a match on the fly. And I'm not talking about in the ring. I'm talking about you show up to a venue and you look at the booking and you're wrestling a guy that you have had zero experience really in ring with, or maybe you haven't wrestled with them in like 7 years, something like that. But we have some personal experience with that, and we both kind of know the ins and outs of that and why it's important to be able to do that, especially sometimes because things are very hectic. But we'll get into those after we get into the reviews. Do you have anything to add on anything before we take off on these reviews there, Chris?
No, I don't have much to add. I have a great learning story when we get to calling things with people we have zero experience with. So don't let me forget to tell you that story.
Does it involve me?
It does not.
I thought you were going to bring up the Kinross incident.
No, we do not need to talk about that.
Anyways, guys, let's get to the reviews. And we're going to start off, kicking off with AEW. We'll go to Dynamyte. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this week in wrestling kicked off with AEW Dynamyte. Like I said, AEW Dynamyte kind of aired on the normal network at the normal time, which was a shocker for me based on Raw. No basketball game, like you said. Interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting to tune into wrestling and actually see wrestling.
Yeah. So in this episode, we had a Forbidden Door thing we'll talk about in a little bit, as well as another appearance. But this show started off with the advertised Adam Page versus Lance Archer for the AEW Championship in a Texas death match. And as soon as they were done promoting that, MJF had a great promo. The biggest win in his career over CM Punk. I don't know what you thought about this this promo segment, but anytime, like, in my opinion, MJF is very similar to what we were talking about with Seth Rollins. Anytime that MJF is out there with a mic in his hand, it's money. Anytime he's out, it's money.
Yeah. For sure. MJF is money. And this segment was the perfect way to open up a wrestling show if you're not going to have wrestling. Everybody from the Pinnacle brought it.
Yeah. And in my notes, I literally wrote here that this is how you open up a show with a promo segment. It didn't string on forever. It didn't keep us going, oh my God, get to the point. No, they got to what they wanted to address. And I feel like it was very assertive, and the crowd loved, like, dude, they ate that up.
Yeah, they did. And we went 22 minutes on this, and it just flew by. It was fantastic. They couldn't do any better.
I truly believe that a good promo can go as long as it needs to go, as long as it keeps people interested and it's relatable to the content you're doing. And if it's done right, it'll feel like 5 minutes goes by in 5 seconds.
Yep.
So
And
like,
then they set the stage for some stuff that was happening later on as well.
yes, they did. Um, you know, again, with the whole promoing of Adam Page, I'm not a fan. I'm not an Adam Page fan. Hangman Adam Page is just not a believable gimmick to me.
He is definitely one of those people that he needs a gimmick that makes him, and this gimmick is not making him. He's a good wrestler. He's okay on the mic, but his gimmick is not believable for what he's presenting.
No, not at all. I just wanted to get that out before we actually went further because, like, I keep seeing the promo segment and I didn't say that. But they did set up for stuff later on in the night. The proposed main event pitting Punk and a mystery partner against FTR. That's kind of interesting to see. I was interested to see FTR face CM Punk and a mystery opponent for a couple of different reasons. For the fact that FTR is probably the best tag team in the business right now, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree.
And if they actually use these guys correctly, they can be used very well. They don't have to win every match. They just want to do something relative, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This segment got an A all across the boards for me. This is how it's done.
Yeah.
And then we had a match that honestly came out better than what I thought on paper.
With the Blade and Wardlow.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. We had Darby Allin vow to never work for Andrade Doily. Andrade Doily. I don't know how to pronounce that. I don't even want to go there.
I wasn't even going to bring it up.
But basically just pushed for the A title, the TNT Championship opportunity he's going to get. But yeah, then it gets us to Wardlow and the Blade. I mean, it wasn't a horrible match. It wasn't a great match, but like I did like the fact that they put Wardlow in the disadvantage early off with this leg injury, and he worked the leg. I was kind of impressed that he stayed working on the leg and he didn't kind of like lose track or make it look less believable as the match went on. He stayed with the sell.
Yeah, up until the end when he held him for a 10-second vertical suplex and then did 4 power bombs.
Okay,
so much for that leg.
Yeah. Well, he sold it to the end.
I guess by that point in time, he's recovered and can do that.
The adrenaline kicked over, and he's Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, no, the match wasn't bad.
And I think that I wrote in my notes that I think it definitely helped that Wardlow was wrestling a guy like the Blade, who a lot of people discredit and is very, very veteran. He's been in the business a long time.
Yeah.
I gave this match a solid B, which is very good for Wardlow because his matches are usually in the C- to D range.
Yeah.
It might have went a little longer. I could have made this a little bit more of a squash match, in my opinion, but props to kind of making the Blade look a little bit dominant as well at times.
Yeah, they had to go through a break, so that's why it was extended a little bit.
Now we have to go into my least favorite part of the show, the Inner Circle team meeting.
Yeah. Oh, Jericho.
Sammy Guevara, Jake Hager, they made their way to the ring for the Inner Circle for this team meeting. Santana and Ortiz, conspicuous by their absence, arrived moments later with their own music. Santana cut, and don't get me wrong. I normally like Santana and Ortiz on the mic. This dude cut this promo like he would have rather been taking a dump. I mean, I don't know a better way to put this. He had it was the most uninspired promo, unimpassioned thing I've seen Santana or Ortiz do in the history of AEW. They've always been majorly amped and over the top. And then this one, he's just kind of like Orange Cassidy. Oh,
yeah, I don't know if that was what they're supposed to be doing, showing that they're not interested, but yeah, it was off.
I mean, I'm sorry if that's really true, Santana. I'm sorry if somebody truly ran over your dog. I truly apologize, but that's what you look like, bro.
Oh man, no. Yeah.
I mean, he had a point about them not focusing on tag team on the titles and all that. I mean, he did have some valid points, but I mean, It was like watching a depressed clown make a balloon animal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it went a little long, in my opinion, this entire segment. We got to the point to where Sammy interjected and
Yep.
essentially threw in his jacket, and he was done.
Well,
But then the
after
segment went.
that was after Jericho snarked at him and told him to shut up. That was very important. That was made very important if you couldn't tell by the way they changed camera angles and did the deep focus on Jericho's face.
Yeah. And then it went like another 5 minutes after that. And so they could have easily gotten the point across of what was going to happen. And we kind of all knew it was going to happen anyway.
Had to bring Eddie Kingston in out of left field and talk about him. And it just, I wrote, had this been structured the right way, I would have gave this an A, but it went too long and now I'm too confused. So you get a C.
That's generous. That is
Chris
very
Jericho.
Generous.
I'm sorry. I have been a Chris Jericho fan my entire life, and I know you have too.
Yeah.
He needs to stop.
Yeah, if he wants to wrestle, let's just wrestle. But he doesn't need to be on the microphone anymore. He doesn't need to be a commentator anymore. He just needs to wrestle.
I think Fozzy just needs to book some more tour dates because he does just fine.
You don't even want to see him wrestle.
Fozzy's a great band, dude. Like his voice has gotten way better over the years, but
I know I have to hear it every time he comes out.
With Chris Jericho, if he's not saying something to get you behind, his matches aren't as interesting.
Yeah.
That's been the big problem with AEW and his run. Well, that and his Golden Corral obsession weight gain that he had there for a year. Went from Axl Rose to Meatloaf in a year.
Yeah, saying. I mean, when you book cruises, that's what happened.
He went from an A cup to a double C. Okay, I don't know what happened to him. He can't do the lion salt no more. He has to do the spinning elbow.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyways, enough bagging on Jericho because I still love you and I would mark out if you ever met me. Anyway, I would. I'd mark out for him.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, and in my notes I did write, even though I did not get behind this promo, the show, the crowd's hot when they get behind this because the crowd got behind it.
Yeah,
Impact did not.
Right. Yeah.
Hager's and another note I wrote that Hager looked like a creeper just standing in the background, kind of everybody.
He's always doing that. That's what he does. That is his gimmick.
He's like, event security. Your seat's over there, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, on to the next segment. I can talk about Jericho for a year.
Yeah. Just before the next segment here, we heard 2 times that the forbidden door was going to be broken or somebody was going through the forbidden door. And this
2
was
times.
The setup.
2 times. 2 times. The forbidden door thing is interesting. Oh, good Lord. This forbidden door. Okay. So you know what a forbidden door is.
Yeah.
It's when somebody from another company crosses borders while technically still contracted by another company.
Well, that's what I thought it was.
Until Tony Khan gave us Keith Lee.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Now, I have to give you a little bit of shit right here. Okay. You admitted on video, so I have proof that you had no idea who Keith Lee was.
No, not well. Yeah, Keith Lee. I have been an AEW fan since they started. I have not watched maybe more than 2 minutes of WWE in the last 2.5 years, and it's my understanding that that's when Keith Lee made his stint in WWE was the last 2.5 years.
After being
I have no idea who he was.
A big indie darling, yes.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that we pulled you out of the rock that you've been sleeping in, and you're back out in society. The Groundhog, he didn't see a shadow this year. Chris Young did not see a shadow. He did not run back into a hole.
Yeah.
So, hopes. Yeah. I feel bad for pulling him out because he's had to watch some really shitty wrestling.
Well, well, the problem was
For
Keith
that, if
Lee
you
was
like.
supposed to be the Forbidden Door, and then Tony Khan realized that's not the Forbidden Door. So the last minute he had to
Well,
bring in Jay White.
here's the inner circle joke. Okay, so imagine Tony Khan standing backstage, and Keith Lee unveils, and he comes out, and he's like, "Yeah, that's the Forbidden Door," and then Jericho taps him on the shoulder. Psst, hey, numbnuts! I created the term Forbidden Door when I traveled to Japan while working for WWE and had that match with Kenny Omega.
Yeah,
That's not a Forbidden Door. Oh, well, we better get Jay White in here.
yeah, yep.
Not knowing Jay White wasn't as big of a shock to me as Keith Lee. I kind of thought you might have knew who he was, but um, unless you have been watching like major promotional indies, which is something a lot of the internet fans do nowadays. Um, I'm guilty as charged. Hi, my name is Phil. I have an internet addiction to wrestling. Um, I watch far too much of it for far too long. Like most people get bored and they watch like South Park or like their favorite TV series, and I just go watch indie wrestling on different websites. Um, it's sad because I mean I've seen a lot of crappy wrestling, but I've seen some good stuff too. Um, point
Well,
being,
But before we go any further, ladies and gentlemen, let me take this time to tell you all, when I first started doing podcasts out here, I had to do everything from my computer. They didn't even have encoders at that time. We were just recording audio. We were putting it up. We were doing everything we could, using all sorts of different editor programs and whatnot. Nowadays, ladies and gentlemen, there's a program out there that can make all of your podcasting simple and easy, and Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Anchor gives you the tools. It gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or your computer. Now, I can tell you that this is very helpful for someone like me whose computer went down. I am able to get on my phone, record these podcasts, and still get them out in a timely manner. Their creation tools do allow you to record and edit your podcast to make them sound so great like they do coming out of Anchor. They'll also distribute your podcast for you so it can easily be heard everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can easily make money as well from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Again, no minimum listenership. If you're interested in checking this out, or you're looking for a new way to podcast, go to Anchor today and download the Anchor app, or go to anchor.fm to get started.
yeah, I didn't know who Jay White was, and I felt a little bit better when I was listening to Jim Cornette today. He wasn't too sure who he was either, and Brian Last wasn't exactly sure who Jay White was either. So I feel a little better.
right, right. It's mostly like, to me, the main group of people that would know Jay White is anybody who followed like anything indie in the last like 8 years, as far as like Ring of Honor, the underground promotions, like over in England they have an IPW, um, companies over there. He's like the same crowd that knows who Zack Sabre Jr. is generally knows who Jay White is. Do you know who Zack Sabre Jr. is?
Nope.
You should check him out sometime. He is one of the best technical wrestlers in the world. His stuff is awesome. He bends people's limbs. He's very believable. Dude's amazing. I don't know why he doesn't have a contract in America.
So let's expand on this a little bit. Is Jay White in AEW? Is that the Forbidden Door?
Yes, because he's still under contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling. He is New Japan Pro Wrestling's like one of their top 5 stars. So it'd be like for Japan, it would be like them watching AEW because it's a worldwide syndicated show.
Yeah.
So it'd be like us turning on New Japan Pro Wrestling back in the day when Hulk Hogan wrestled Oneida.
Okay. So
Like, yeah. So
but Jay's been wrestling for Impact for the last month and a half.
but they have an open relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
And Jay hasn't
been
wrestled
sharing-
for New Japan in almost a year.
That is true, but he's still under contract as their main star, and he's pushing the Bullet Club, and that's like what they've been doing for the last, like, I don't know, 7 years.
Yeah.
So I think what they're setting up for is a Bullet Club versus Elite thing, because they were all Bullet Club at one point in time.
Yeah.
I think that was the whole draw. I know that Tony's wanted to bring him in for a long time, but then had to throw From my understanding, Tony Khan threw a shitload of money at Jay White.
I'm sure he had to get him that fast.
Um,
And when I think Forbidden Door, for me, I think of things like the pay-per-view from the mid-90s when Worlds Collide. You know, I think about the Smoky Mountain tag team titles being defended on a WWE pay-per-view, SummerSlam '93.
Yeah.
You know, Lex Luger showing up on Nitro 8 days after SummerSlam and the day after a house show.
When he was the ECW television champion with Bill Alfonso for a 2-month run in the WWE.
Yeah, the ECW invasion.
Jerry on an ECW television show and wrestling on a pay-per-view against Terry Funk.
Yeah.
Tommy Dreamer and Sabu. So, like, there's...
And a more recent example to me would be Mickie James showing up at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan showing up in Japan back in the day.
You know, this may qualify as a Forbidden Door, but I don't think it had as big of a, excuse the term, impact, you know, than what everybody thought it would be.
Rick Rude was one of the biggest Forbidden Door breaks because he was actually on both shows at the same time.
Oh yeah, and ECW was doing reruns, so he was actually in clips of ECW that weekend too.
Yeah, he was on ECW like he was on like 4 different television networks, different wrestling shows that week. Like, man, Rick Rude was amazing.
But what happened for me, I didn't know who Jay White was, so I immediately got onto the Google machine and I looked, and I was super impressed. And now I'm excited to see him in the ring.
Yeah, he's a great addition to AEW. And with AEW's bloated roster, you're not going to hear me say that a lot of guys are good additions to this roster anymore. They really need to trim the bloated fat on this company. There's guys that I haven't seen wrestle in like 7 months that I looked on their roster that still exist on their roster. They may be
every time they run the results at the bottom, I'm looking for Colt Cabana name, and I never see it.
Yeah. I think he's one of them guys that he's at the end of his career, and he's just milking this contract for what it's worth. And now that CM Punk's there, his best friend, you know, I definitely just kind of see it being one of those things where it's like, oh, my best friend's here, so I'm just going to kind of ride this contract out for what it's worth. Plus, you know, the untimely death of Brody Lee, God rest your soul, sir. You know, that definitely didn't help his momentum because he had just joined the Dark Order, like literally right before Brody Lee passed away. So I think he was in a weird spot, and I don't think they really know what to do with Colt Cabana at this point because he doesn't really fit with anybody as far as tagging up in Dark Order, except maybe John Silver, Johnny Hungy. But before we get too off track here, I want to touch on the fact that Tony Khan is a billionaire, and no, Tony Khan doesn't know everything about the wrestling business, but you've got to give him credit where credit is due. He has learned more in the wrestling business in the last 3 years than Vince McMahon could remember about the wrestling business at all with his old Alzheimer's ass. I don't know what's going on with that company, but it's in shambles.
Yeah.
In comparison, the way that this company's ran in comparison is just ridiculous.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know what's going on with WWE. I don't know that they're in shambles, but everyone says that they're looking to sell, but I don't know. It's interesting.
So I wasn't expecting Keith Lee. I was honestly expecting Karrion Kross here because that was kind of what was hyped. Isaiah Cassidy came out from Private Party, accompanied by Mark Quinn and Matt Hardy. And his opponent was a debuting free agent. And when Keith Lee came out, I immediately thought, okay, here we go. Here's a big name. This guy was lined up he was supposed to win the Royal Rumble last year. He was supposed to be where Drew McIntyre was. And he got COVID and some other things happened, and they kind of pulled back from him. Keith Lee is the kind of guy that is a big man. And I'm kind of worried about that because AEW destroys every big man they have. Every big man. They did it to Lance Archer for the longest. So I was worried. And then this match went on. And I'm going to tell you right now that Keith Lee is a beast, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
This match was fantastic. It was a great debut for Keith Lee. I didn't know who he was coming out, but I'm a huge Keith Lee fan now, and I have to give huge props to Isaiah Kennedy for what he did.
Yeah, there was two Keith Lees. Okay, there was the Keith Lee that wrestled in NXT, very motivated, very hungry, had a lot to prove. Then there was the Keith Lee in the WWE main roster where they just kind of use you like a cog in the machine, and you don't really know where you're going to end up, and you don't really know what's going on. To put Keith Lee back in a situation where he has control of what he's doing, it gave him the ultimate motivation, and he came out and proved that in the ring. That senton off the steps where he grabbed him dead weight.
Yeah.
Dead freaking weight.
Yeah. It was amazing.
Full momentum just stopped him like a brick wall and grabbed him.
Yeah. Yep. It was very impressive.
I don't think the living legend Donkey Kong could pull something like that off, okay?
Yeah. It was great.
Lee defeated Cassidy in what I've had as an A match. Straight up A match.
Oh,
dominant.
Yeah. It was the best way you could debut somebody with a match. It got him over. His opponent looked okay. It didn't look like a giant squash match. And then, of course, they had the obligatory AEW apron spot.
Yeah, there's always an apron spot in AEW. But I feel like Keith Lee's he had a motivation here, and it was to prove that creative completely messed up with him in WWE. I feel like he proved his point tonight.
I agree. And then we entered, I believe it was hour 2. So,
yeah. Which kicked off with a bang.
Yeah. Yep. We got to figure out who CM Punk's mystery partner was.
He was all smiles as he came out through the curtain.
Yeah. Yeah, that's CM Punk for you. All smiles.
And then we heard the Ricky Vaughn relief music, and Mr. John Moxley came out.
Yeah, he did. Took him forever to get to the ring.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the time filler.
Yeah.
We got to kill 5 minutes. Signal John Moxley. Wow, dang.
Yep. It's always entertaining to see if he's going to be able to move the barricade out of his way so he could get through, and how much he's going to struggle with that. Not too bad this time.
Well, since he's went to rehab, he hasn't struggled so much with that. I'll say it, okay?
Wow. Okay.
But when Moxley entered the arena, the crowd went nuts.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah, they were hot for this match.
They were. After
it started off good. It did. It started off really good.
I liked the emotion that Dax Harwood showed with the frustrating exchange at the beginning of the match. And then he clipped the left knee. I think that was a good spot. I wrote that in my notes just because of how it looked.
Yeah.
If you go back and watch the beginning of that match, it started off like that's the epitome of how you want to start a wrestling match out with a hot crowd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they took a commercial break, and all hell broke loose because no longer were they following the rules. They were just just an all-out fight. Yep,
I wrote. Did anybody tell them that the commercial break is televised or what?
Yeah,
I was a little confused on that one, but
that's when they chose to do the table spot, was during the commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. But I personally, I didn't care for this match as much as I probably should. I thought it went just a little too long, and I'm more of I want to see him wrestle in the ring. I'm not a big fan of wrestling everywhere and not following rules. So, I deducted the overall rating because of all that. I mean, it was a good match, but it wasn't great. I'd say it was probably a C-.
I, 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 I again wrote false comeback, false comeback, false comeback, false comeback.
Yeah.
That took away from this match for me. I gave it a B minus, but I'm honestly being generous because this wasn't as much as there was technical wrestling problems and the false comebacks. It was a hot match and it worked. So I gave it a little bit better of a grade because, I mean, quite frankly, like it built momentum for all sides, in my opinion. It definitely helps CM Punk. FTR just getting exposure on television on a higher end match is probably a better thing for them than not being seen at all. So
Yeah, they're getting exposure on TV, but I don't know if it's good exposure or bad exposure yet.
again, I wrote that this went a little long. They could have took probably 5 minutes off this match easy.
Yeah.
And if they would have, I think that the rating would have went from a lower to a higher. I think if they would have shaved some of that dumb crap out of the match, it probably would have been a lot better.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
It proves that FTR can hang with anybody. Moxley was kind of a shock, I guess.
Yeah, they were trying to play it where CM Punk doesn't have any friends in the locker room. And of course, John Moxley is just kind of a tweener, Some
Yep.
people like him, some people don't. And yeah, I guess he
Well-
just was having a day where he wanted to be CM Punk's friend.
And the other reason I gave it a little bit higher of a grade is because this match does pretty much hypothetically set it up for the pay-per-view match that'll come to a head for this feud between CM Punk and MJF at the pay-per-view on March 6th. So
Probably.
it'd be a good guess that now that they beat FTR, there's going to be another obstacle for him to climb, and then MJF's going to give him a rematch.
Yep.
Then we saw, if in my opinion, a very, very green Jade Cargill against AQA.
AQA.
Have
This
you
was
ever?
the third debut in AEW today for this event. She was number 3, and I feel bad for her because her debut got overshadowed by everything else going on.
Well, there's some significance, and I don't know if you heard this. I already knew this because I have seen. I don't know if you're familiar with Booker T. He kind of has a gym and does like a small promotion himself.
Yeah.
So AQA had wrestled underneath the tutelage of Booker T. She was trained by Booker T.
Right.
So I've seen her wrestle. So I was a little excited when I seen her, but then I seen she was fighting Jade Cargill, and I knew that this was not going to be a good match.
Well, I thought it was a great match, actually. There were a few little hang-ups, but the fact that it wasn't just a big squash and Jade just destroyed AQA, I'm glad that it wasn't like that. I'm glad I got to see a lot of good action. The one thing that bothered me was, AQA's finisher is the shooting star press, and she hit it, and it looked fantastic. But then Jade kicked out of it, and it's like that just kills it.
5-star shooting star press right there.
Yeah. Yep. And then it kind of set up for the finish where she went up for the second time, and it looked a little awkward. But I mean, ultimately, I think this was probably top 1-2 of the matches of the night. I mean, I gave it a B+.
Wow, this is where we differ. I wrote this was a great match till the finish, and that second shooting star press, everything fell apart after that.
Yeah.
If they could have finished the match solidly, they would have ended up with probably an A- B+. Instead, I gave them a straight C. And the notes on the bottom were Jade Cargill is green and needs to learn how to finish a match correctly.
Yeah.
Their styles clash too much, in my opinion. AQA looked like a star. AQA looked like she should have pretty much beat Jade Cargill, even if it was a squash DQ, a smaj.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that it was okay. So it's obvious when you bring somebody in, okay, and this is why I gave it the grade, to be honest, Chris. When you have somebody come in who is debuting fresh out of developmental and they outwork your champion,
well,
probably not a smart move.
Well, and she outworked her. AQA outworked Jade just for the simple fact that she had to bump. And Jade took her a few good bumps, but, that's her job. AQA has to sell the crap for Jade.
Yeah. So the next match was, I don't even know if I call this a match. In an attempt to prove she could beat anyone in 5 minutes, Serena Deeb introduced the Professor's 5-minute rookie challenge just 1 week after impressively defeating Sky Blue, who was another person who's like very young. Her opponent this week was Katie Arquette, no relation to David. So there's no bloodline for world titles here.
It was almost the 4th debut in AEW with Katie Arquette, but she had wrestled one time before, so it's technically not her debut.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was a struggle cuddle. If you do not know what struggle cuddle means, ask your kids.
Yeah.
This was a straight gangbang. This match was just Serena Deeb all out beating down Arquette and dropped that Serenity Lock and it was over. Did it make her look dominant? Yes. But it also made her look kind of like weak because you picked on somebody so weak. So I gave it a...
Katie got 15 seconds of offense. Come on now. That's 25% of the match.
I wrote why, somebody like Serena Deeb should never accept a storyline where her job is to beat up on rookies. You should be wanting to try and put them over in a way before you just beat them into submission.
Yeah. Well, they're obviously building her up. So, I enjoy her work. I think she does a really good job. I like her gimmick. So no complaints when she's on the TV.
I definitely wrote that these grades could improve based on the traction and how she pushes the storyline.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a really weird way to transition into the AEW World Championship match.
Yeah. Yep. And that's where we go now. The main event. The Texas Death Match that wasn't a Texas Death Match.
So where was I have a question. Where was AEW Dynamyte at?
They were at the Trump Plaza. Well, the old Trump Plaza.
In Atlantic City, right?
Yep.
Oh, why are they having a Texas Death Match in Atlantic City?
I don't know. Well, again, it wasn't a Texas Death Match because, Texas Death Match, after the pin, they have 10 seconds to get up or the count of 10 to get to their feet. And if they can, the match continues. But they didn't do that. This was just a straight, I guess, death match.
Yeah.
So
Lance Archer got thrown through a plate of glass in the opening minute to the match.
Yeah.
I really didn't understand why you would put somebody through a spot like that early in the match. That was definitely something they probably should have waited to do towards the end.
I thought it would have been funny if they had written forbidden on there and it looked like he was going through the forbidden door.
Yeah.
But apparently I was the only one that thought that'd be funny. The best part was the camera behind the glass door.
Yeah. Yeah. Telegraphed me lately there.
Exactly.
Express.
Yeah. I hadn't seen that since Marty Jannetty went through the barbershop window.
I about peed myself laughing when Dan, retort from last week, not Adam. I don't know why I called him Adam Lambert last week, but Dan Lambert, he come running through the ring. Like I've never seen Dan Lambert move that quick in my entire life. And these guys are fighting on the floor. And Lambert just like runs up and opens up exposes the top turnbuckle.
Yeah.
So I'm like they missed a spot and they were like, Lambert, get your ass out there and get that turnbuckle open for the spot.
But he took down the whole top rope. It was fantastic. It was a good idea. It was creative.
Well, then he can't do that buckshot lariat.
Yeah. Well, that's what we thought.
Yeah. Except he's a midget. So,
but I mean, as far as death matches go, it was all right. We knew we were going to see blood. We saw blood. I got scared for a second because when Adam Page bounced off the steps, his left hand smashed the bottom rail of the ring, and it looked like he really hurt it. He was in pain and he was grabbing it, and the whole rest of the match he didn't use that left hand.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for the mark-out moment of the week? Ladies and gentlemen, the mark-out moment of the week was Jake the Snake Roberts after the short arm clothesline. Calls for the DDT, but it didn't go.
Yeah.
I marked out. So if he would have hit that DDT, Jake's old, but he's still Jake Roberts, man.
Yeah, there was no way we'd see a DDT outside. No way.
He was not taking a back bump on that crowd.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not even
yeah.
DDP Yoga could have got him up from that one.
Yeah. Okay. So we got to see some barbed wire action.
Wrapped in a chair.
Yep. Yep. And then eventually wrapped around some fists. And then we got to see some thumbtacks. Always fun when you see thumbtacks. And then the finish came when the referee was bending over for an extremely long time, picking up the barbed wire, and Adam Page got to do his slingshot lariat using the referee to the outside through some tables.
But did you notice when the referee was bent over, he was only like a foot higher than the second rope?
Yeah.
So I was like, really? You couldn't have just used like second rope?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was cool. It was interesting. It was fun, but it doesn't make sense.
I'm being overly critical on this match, but then again, any match where you have Hangman Adam Page literally dominating a guy like the Murder Hawk Monster for anything more than 2 minutes is just not viable to me.
Yeah.
He could have won it by the end by like putting him through some thumbtacks or like barbed wire chair shot, anything. But to let him run with so much dominance in this match, in a Texas death match against a guy the size of Lance Archer, it wasn't 100% viable to me. It was definitely entertaining. The crowd was white hot. They were definitely into this match. But in that circuit, the ECW crowd's very prominent. So blood, gore, hardcore wrestling is going to be just loved. It was slow, escalated into violence and drama, culminating in 2 really good spots that wowed the audience, and kind of gave Page to prove that he kind of had to put more effort into this title defense than others. But at the end of the day, I still feel like Lance Archer should have been made to be more dominant. I feel like they took too much away from Lance Archer by giving Adam Page a straight up unanimous victory like this.
I don't know about that. I mean, it took a lot for Archer to be down and out for the count, but I don't think it made him look weak. I don't think it took away from him at all.
Well, we'll see what they do with him after this, I guess, would be my next question. What are they going to do with Lance Archer now?
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
Overall, I think the show was pretty entertaining. I think out of all the wrestling lately, AEW has been on top as far as like overall value for entertainment, wrestling, everything. They've been beating WWE for quite a while now.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't see this changing with the talent they're bringing in and the storylines they're pushing. I think it's going to be AEW summer. If you catch my drift, building momentum in towards the holiday season this year, it will all be AEW.
Yeah, they're in a good position to start dominating if they can find a little bit of a larger audience.
I think they're getting there. They need to start expanding their live shows a little more to the areas that they're not as confident in putting them out on. Take a few non-sellout shows just to get your product out there. Vince had to make those sacrifices at times and work in markets that he wasn't exactly comfortable with working, and they didn't have good payouts at first, but now are some of the best paying out cities that he works. Yeah. So sometimes the risk is worth the reward, I guess.
Yep. So that was Dynamyte.
That's the Dynamyte. We're going to jump right into AEW Rampage. This is a shorter show. There's not as much wrestling on this. It's very short. Doesn't mean that it takes away from that. It was probably a good show.
They started the show with both tag teams, the Young Bucks and Roppongi Vice, in the ring. So they must have heard you complaining that only one person got the entrance last week. Both teams are in there. So it's who's going to win? We don't know.
You're telling me that Tony got the link to the podcast?
Because
I totally said it. God.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah.
I'm promoting the hell out of this podcast to everybody. I'll send this to everybody. Tony Khan. I don't send it to Vince, but I'm a little petrified of Vince McMahon. Austin Theory. I don't want to be his bitch.
But yeah,
Yeah, I
Young
did.
Bucks.
Started them in the ring at the same time, and there was no entrances. So
Yeah, it started immediately, and we were off and running with a Young Bucks style match. If that's your
and
thing, good.
well, see, here's the thing about the Young Bucks. Usually, like you get one type of match with them. Usually, generic, like their wrestling style is pretty much you get what you pay for with the Young Bucks. Flippy shit, super kicks, high spots. It's not my style of wrestling, but the new crowds love it and they eat it up. But this match was more of the New Japan Pro Wrestling Young Bucks, which is still a lot of flippy shits and super kicks, but it's a different style. This was more of New Japan junior heavyweight wrestling opposed to the over exaggerated half comedy gimmick wrestling that the Young Bucks usually do.
Yeah, and you're right. The crowd ate it up. I mean,
They
3/4 of the way they're chanting, "This is awesome." I mean, it was good. I don't know if it was awesome, but I guess it's just their way of showing appreciation for all the stuff that they're doing.
Oh, and then you think the crowds popped hard up until Cassidy went under the ring. When they tried to pull him out and Danhausen came with him, dude, that crowd, he is the biggest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah,
biggest thing since the Bill Cosby trial. Wait.
Everybody loves him. I haven't quite seen anything to be in love with yet, but everybody loves him.
His videos on YouTube are entertaining.
I'll have to check it out. Yeah. And the Young Bucks did this creative spot where they were trying to get a count out. Right at the beginning, they ran to the front or the entrance, and then 2 super kicks, and then ran back, and it was creative.
So in my notes, was I the only one that noted that Rampage almost every commercial break is picture in picture?
Yeah.
So why was this one not? And it went to commercial break with Beretta doing a suicide dive. And then when we came back from break, the Bucks were like totally in control and like had been beaten the hell down. And like I was like, wait, what? How did it go from this dude going over on a high spot to they're back in the ring and beat down and the Bucks are like in full control? That immediately tells me that wasn't 90 seconds worth of beautiful bean footage that we missed.
I don't know. There was a picture-in-picture spot in there somewhere. I don't know if it took 2 commercials because the apron spot happened in the middle of the picture-in-picture.
There was. And then there was another break right up until the point where what's his name? Not Trump Beretta, but Rocky Romero. When he took that hot tag, there was a break right before that, and it was just like a real quick 45-second commercial break.
Oh yeah.
And when they came back, he had went from a suicide dive to looking like they got the crap kicked out of him, and they were in the ring, and the Bucks took over. And I'm like, how in 45 seconds did you go from taking a dive, a toy Supacita outside to you beat him down and he's back in the ring 45 seconds later? Like I said, that's obvious there was a cut there. They took that match out. It must have went too long.
Yep, the magic of television.
Oh, every pre-taped.
Yeah. So the Young Bucks get the victory.
Overall, it was a good match. I gave it a B+. A different style made the Young Bucks fresh.
Yeah, I gave it a B.
It started out like any other tag. They picked up the pace, and they definitely made it more exciting. The only thing I can say is the outcome was pretty predictable. It was interesting to see how they got there, though.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say the wrestler that caught my eye in this match would be Rocky Romero. Rocky Romero is a great talent. He definitely stood out in this match. They need to use Roppongi Vice a little more, I think. I don't like the name Roppongi Vice. Sounds like a wedgie. But other than that, I think they're good.
Yeah, and then afterwards...
You walk in with a waddle. What's wrong with you? My Roppongi Vice.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that from now on.
Yeah, and then afterwards we had Jay White came out and let's see who, I forget who he attacked. I didn't even write it down. I just wrote Jay White is here, and they made a big deal about it. This is the first time he's in an AEW ring.
Oh yeah. Who did he attack? I didn't even put it in my notes. I was probably too busy watching that one.
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah. So, but that
Next,
was the segment.
We had another debut for AEW this week. The champion, Dr. Britt Baker, faced off. I don't know if this was a debut. I'm pretty sure this was a Rampage debut for sure.
Yeah.
The Women's World Championship against Robin Renegade. Who is Robin Renegade? Rocket is that like the illegitimate daughter of Rockin' Robin and the Renegade?
I don't know. I'm surprised they didn't name her Robin Rampage because they were on Rampage, but yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good match. I thought it was good. I thought she held her own against Britt Baker. And I always like it when it's a competitive match with somebody who's unknown or someone who's new.
Again, she built up good momentum. She had good wrestling style. She kept up. She had good psychology. I really think that in this this is my example between having somebody in the ring like Jade Cargill facing somebody who's debuting, opposed to somebody like Britt Baker, who's a seasoned veteran, wrestling against somebody that's new. This new person, just because they're new, didn't mean they weren't trained correctly. They came in, they knew how to run a match. Guess what? Britt Baker did too, and they had a great match. I gave it a B+.
Yeah, I gave it a B-. I thought it was a good match, a very good match.
I think that they wanted to make you believe it was going to be a squash match, and they twisted it on you.
Yeah, I think they went through a commercial break too, which was nice.
They did. But they definitely worked well, and it was very entertaining for a performance. I mean, especially when you're expecting a squash match.
Yeah. Yep. So then
next match was
Hook.
Bring us the Hook. Bring us the Hook.
Against Blake Lee.
Or as I like to call him, Little Goku, because his hair looks like he's a Dragon Ball Z character. Yeah, Lee or Lai or Li.
Blake Lee.
Blake Lee?
Yeah.
Blake Lee? Anyways, TJ, what was that, Marshall? Or what is his name?
QT Marshall was in his corner. Yeah.
Q-Tip Marshall.
I called it a competitive squash match. Yeah. Hook was dominant most of the time. Blake got a few little moves in, but they were ineffective. And I think it was like 2.5 minutes. Hook was victorious.
The flip out of the hip toss into the gut wrench suplex was a good spot.
Yeah.
I gave it
a C-. It held its own, but there were a few little miscues, but it's to be expected.
I gave it a higher grade because of the simple fact that every time that we watch Hook in a ring, he shows us something new. Yeah. He shows us that he's learning, and they're actually building him slowly. The only thing that I question about Hook is eventually he's going to have to deliver a promo. He's going to have to talk. And I just pray that the voice of Taz doesn't come out of that mouth.
Yeah, he's going to have some sort of vocal training because
he can't come out and say, beat me if you can, survive if I let you, because I don't think that's going to work.
Yeah.
I really don't think that's going to work. But it was a good match. Then,
as Mark Henry would say, it's time for the main event.
Yeah. And, I should have been more excited for this match because I really do like the possibility of Colton and Austin Gunn. I do not like the tag team of the Ass Bros, though.
Yeah,
they need to come out with the Gun Show like they were. I like the Gun Show name a lot better than the Ass Bros.
Yeah, well, the Gun Club, that works. Yeah, they were taking on the champions, Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, and Luchasaurus.
Oh, you mean a boy and his Dino douche? As Cornette would say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly sure why, but the crowd was super excited during this match. I mean, they had some good drama. They were building it up.
No, because at the beginning of the show, the match, they got to go, oh. That's fine. They got to be interactive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That probably got him, excited after that hook match. Yeah.
I wrote that there was fast paced match, and if it hadn't been for the Gun Club or the Ass Bros or Billy Gunn's kids, this match probably would have hit more flat than it did. I think a lot of times the guys that the Lucha brother or the Lucha brothers, Jesus, that Luchasaurus and Jack Perry get put up against, they don't always mesh well with, and it creates for some awkward points in matches. This one, however, didn't have those awkward points.
Yeah. No, it was fairly smooth the entire time. It was nice.
I like the spot where Jungle Boy accidentally hit Luchasaurus with a suicide dive when Austin moved out of the way. I like the heel tactics of the Gun Show or the Gun Club or whatever we're going to call them, still the Ass Bros. I like the fact that he hit the belt, but
yeah. Well, what I didn't like, and I don't mean to pile on with Chris Jericho here. We're 3 minutes into the match, and Chris Jericho says, "This is a huge opportunity for the Gun Club." And several more times, "This is a huge opportunity. If they could win, this would be amazing." But this is the same exact thing he said when Robin Renegade was wrestling Britt Baker. It's a huge opportunity. Look at if she wins, this would be amazing. And we all know how that ended. So that pretty much tipped the cap that the Gun Club were not going to win.
Do you want to know how I feel about Chris Jericho on commentary?
Well, why don't you tell me?
He's becoming a real douchebag on the microphone. He should stay home commentary alone. Fuck that. He's horrible, man. I can't stand listening to Rampage. When I know Rampage is going to come on and I know I have to sit there for an hour, and I am a mark for Chris Jericho. I have been a mark for Chris Jericho for 25 years, and I cannot stand his mouth. Like, I can't stand the way that he yells in the microphone. I can't stand the way that when Tony Schiavone or anybody else is trying to make a point, he completely disregards it and tries to just go over top of him with some stupid Jerry Lawler wannabe comment. But the difference between him and Jerry Lawler is Jerry Lawler made a lot of money for many years being good at what he did.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I agree 100% with what you're saying with Jericho. He's too loud. He's too annoying. He needs to move on.
There's an old woodshed out back like Old Yeller. He needs to get taken back to and shot. Well, I'm sorry. Yeah, I love Chris Jericho. I love you, Chris. If you're listening to this podcast, dude, please don't take offense. I love you, buddy. But you need to stop doing commentary.
Yeah. So that was AEW Rampage.
He needs to stop doing commentary as much as Booker T needed to stop doing that Nicaraguan accent back in TNA. Okay? That was bad. If you've never seen it, go back and look up Booker T and
no, I
TNA
know what you're talking about.
Promos.
Yeah. No, I like Rampage. I thought it was a pretty good show.
I still say that AEW is on the top.
Yep.
Of wrestling right now. Like, there's no getting around that. We can't deny it. Now we get to go into, I don't know what your thought about it was, but I thought for being at the Hard Rock, and I don't know. This Impact was weird.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's right. That was the word. I couldn't remember it. Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that video. You cracked me up with that.
It was
interesting. By the way, I want to give you shout outs right now. Your TikTok videos have been great. Thank you for kind of collabing with me on that Veer Mahan one, because that made, like, when I put that up, I freaking died. If I would have been sitting on the toilet, I'd have pissed myself. Okay, let's just put it.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, you can follow us at Wrestling Bytes on TikTok, and you can see all of our awesome videos up there.
Well, all your awesome videos. I'm working on putting up content, but promotions have kept me a little sidetracked. But I plan on getting some stuff up there soon, so stay tuned for that.
Impact. Okay, we started off the show with Josh Alexander,
my least favorite wrestler, the Pee Wee hockey player.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about him, but yeah,
I got some good news with the beginning of him coming out today, though. So,
oh yeah,
wow, they took him off of team. They took him.
Oh yeah, they took him off the Impact team. That was the whole gist of this 25-minute debacle. Is that ultimately Josh Alexander's going home, Scott D'Amore sent him home, and now he's not part of the Impact team. Darn.
Sometimes your best isn't good enough.
So
And
that was the theme for the entire show. They were trying to figure out who's going to replace him.
Yeah, and his match was long. It was horrible, and I couldn't get behind it. I gave it a C-. I mean,
yeah, I mean it wasn't even a match. I mean, it was just
Big Con.
Yeah. Yep.
Isn't that just a way of saying nails, Big Con?
No.
Does that mean we're gonna have to try to come out here, big boss man? Okay, well, I can dream. That'd be a better spot. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but I mean, again, that was wrapped up in that 25-minute debacle.
It really was. Then we had a Ring of Honor Women's Championship match featuring Deonna Purrazzo, not Pirano, versus
I couldn't read my writing.
Santana Garrett. I was like, she sounds like she's the heiress to a dog food fortune.
Well, see, this was an open challenge. It was either for the Ring of Honor Championship or the AAA champ, and I think it was for the AAA, but I don't know. I really don't know. It could have been for the Ring of Honor.
I don't know. They just helped. I just said I believe they advertised this as a Ring of. So this is what I was confused on. I wrote this in my notes. They advertised this as a Ring of Honor Women's Championship match before the match, and then did you see what belt the ref raised? It
had been the AAA one.
It wasn't the Ring of Honor Women's Championship. It was the AAA belt.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's Impact. It's interesting. But, I mean, the match had good psychology. I mean, I thought it was a really good match.
Oh, it was a good match. It was a good match. I had to say that because, it was confusing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I take issue with the announcers. They're 7 minutes in, and Purrazzo goes for a cover, and he says, "Oh, she's trying to win it. She's going for an early victory." I'm like, "You're 7 minutes into the match. That's not an early victory."
No, I definitely put that these girls were toe for toe.
Yeah.
In this entire match, very good sell jobs for Santana Garrett. I wasn't very aware of Santana Garrett. I'd seen some of her matches before. Didn't usually it's like something early off where I hadn't been paying a lot of attention. I paid attention to this match, and she's definitely got some major talent within this company. I think she's very underrated. The way that she put over Deonna Purrazzo in this match and stayed with her and had the attitude like she had a chance in it the whole time. That's really the psychology you want to see in a match. I gave this match a B+.
I gave it a B- only because of the awkward bad finish. They both had their shoulders down, and the ref started counting just a little too early. And at the last second, Deonna was able to get her shoulders up, but it was really awkward because that first count of one, nobody was being pinned.
To be fair, in my notes I wrote this match would have got a B-, but I gave it a B+ because of the slaughter of Pirano. So I felt like we had to save some face somewhere.
Fair enough. Yeah.
We had another women's matches, which is something that I'm not usually a fan of, booking multiple back-to-back women's matches, but in this worked. Mickie James and Chelsea Green. This was a non-title match, correct?
Yes, that's what they announced, a non-title match.
Are we sure? Because I don't remember how many times they had to remind us of this. Was it 6 or 12? It was a non-title match.
A few times. Non-title.
Okay,
non-title.
So couldn't we have just given the win to Chelsea Green right at that point after they told us that this was non-title 27 times? And then it was a good match. Like, they had a good match between each other until it ended.
Yeah. Yeah, with the DQ finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if they're going to emphasize it as non-title, that pretty much gives it away that the champion is not going to win. And then ultimately it was a DQ finish, so it could have been for the title because Mickie James wouldn't have lost the title on a DQ anyway.
Well, we all know as wrestling, yeah, exactly. We all know as wrestling fans that it's horrible booking to literally go across and have a match booked between you and your champion, and then it's the only way you ever do that. In my opinion, the only way that ever works when you have a non-title match against a champion is if you're booking somebody who's actually going to eventually beat that champion in a match and let them beat them clean.
Yeah.
And that's what saves it, is because, oh yeah, she won, but now to get the title, there's a whole different set of obstacles that you have to overcome.
Yeah.
It's part of that telling the story. And I feel like a lot of companies they don't know how to finish the match. So they're like, oh, let's just squash it. Let's just schmoz it and do a DQ. Yeah, but you spent all of this time writing this match based around the fact that Chelsea Green's going to go over anyways. So I feel like that was a little bit of a faux pas, which doesn't usually happen in TNA. So I'm wondering what's going on in their writing group. Is somebody taking some time off or something? Like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, I don't know.
It was so solid for a long time. Then the Inspiration. I don't know if you know who the Inspiration are. They were a tag team in WWE for a while. The Iconics.
Nope.
Peyton Royce is really nice to look at, but that other girl, she just needs to not talk. Billy Kay. But they were trying to coerce Caleb with a K. And Madison Rayne catches him taking pictures of them, and she yells at him. I don't know what is going on as the world's turn there, but I'm sure we'll figure it out eventually, unless you know the backstory on that, but I don't, and I'm a little confused on it. Apparently,
they just keep teasing it, and we're not getting anywhere.
Apparently, he's a whore. That's what I've caught out of this, and she's jealous. So, then there was another bit that was a back and forth on the mics between the Bullet Club and the teams of the Good Brothers and Violent by Design.
Yeah, I got nothing to add here. It was talking.
It was basically a bunch of squabbles. Eric Young wants a piece of Jay White, who's been on AEW, so I really don't know what they're going to do there, but it was very confusing, and that's just kind of where I left it.
Yep.
Then Jonathan Gresham got taken out backstage, which leaves Team Impact without their option because they were going to go to Jonathan Gresham and have him join Team Impact after they sent Pee Wee Hockey Boy home.
Yep.
Then, do you think we had a wrestling match yet? No. We're watching a wrestling show. What do we need wrestling matches for? So Matt Cardona comes on and tells us how he paved the way for wrestlers using digital media. So the title he won from Jordan Grace was made for him. In the rematch, he begs for her to be ready because he is always ready. Okay. So then we had the OGK, Matt Taven and Mike Kanellis with Honor No More versus Rhino and Rich Swann. Now, I can tell you that, in my opinion, bar none, hands down, this was probably the match of the night, in my opinion. You may disagree, but I kind of like this match. I'm a big fan of Matt Taven and Mike Kanellis' work. I think that they're great workers, and they have been for a long time. Running the original Kingdom, Matt Taven really is a pretty good heel. He has solid work.
No, I 100% agree with you. Believe it or not, I thought this match was just as good as Perazo and Garrett. I didn't think one was better than the other, but this one was very, very good. I was very surprised.
I like the fact that they used the heel tactic to win the match after this, that it wasn't a clean win, but it made the match even more interesting. Rhea threw the powder into Rhino's face, and it worked.
Yeah, it was good. It was entertaining. There was some good psychology in there. There was some good wrestling in there. It had it all.
Steve Macklin came out, attacked Honor No More backstage. He pleaded with Team Impact about putting him on the team. They reluctantly accepted. Okay, then we had Brian Myers versus Morrissey.
Yep, in a no DQ?
No
yes, a no DQ match.
What is a Morrissey?
He's an English singer, popular in the 80s. I don't know. What? No, well, that's what I think of every time I hear his name. Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, it was a no DQ match, and if it wasn't for the fact that we saw a Texas death match on AEW on Wednesday, then maybe this match would have meant something. But ultimately, they did a lot of stuff that you would see in a death match.
oh, it did mean something after the match was over when we seen Moose.
Yeah.
I'm not a Moose fan. Have you figured this out yet? Moose. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. Furthermore, he kind of reminds me of Omos's chubbier little brother. So.
Yeah. You know what? I'm thinking about this right now, and this is how uneventful it was. This is the match where they used tax, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was the Texas death match in AEW. They didn't use tax in that. I don't know what the heck I was thinking. I was thinking of this match because they were just so similar.
Okay, well, they used everything but tax in the Texas death match.
Yeah, that's the one they should have used tax in.
Wasn't Texas death matches where thumbtacks were introduced with Terry Funk?
I believe so.
I believe so. Mick Foley and Terry Funk.
Yeah, this is the match where they used tax, and this is also where they had that terrible table fail. They tried to put Morrissey on the table, and the table just collapsed. Yeah,
we're giving it all she's got, Captain.
But I didn't really care for this match. I thought it was long and overproduced, I guess. I don't know.
They could have ended the show after the Rhino match, and it would have been fine.
Yeah. They gave it a lot of time too. So
they did. So that is the wrestling reviews. Again, AEW's on top, man, and they're going to probably stay that way until somebody makes a change.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Impact's got some good wrestling. They could probably try to get there, but right now their stories are uninteresting for some reason.
Yeah, they really are. But I think that competition is good, and it's going to make these companies try to bounce back a little bit.
Yeah. That Impact crowd was really quiet, and they need to find somebody to really get them on their feet.
Yeah, they need that big It Factor like drive. They need. Yeah, Moose ain't doing it.
Yeah, so that was Impact Wrestling.
Moose is on the loose.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I gave the show a C-, and that was generous.
Yeah, I was pretty close to adding a D+.
Yeah,
not the good Impact that we've been seeing. The last, like I said, since the pay-per-view, it's been pretty passe. I'm hoping that they build some momentum coming into their next pay-per-view. I know their pay-per-views are a little bit lengthier in between each other opposed to WWE, but I'm hoping that they're going to build into something. Maybe this is just the calm before the storm, and I'm really hoping that that's the case. So
I agree.
On to Topicsville, man.
Whoa, what about SmackDown?
Are we doing SmackDown tonight?
Yeah, here, ready? We're going to do SmackDown in 5 minutes because the first hour we're going to completely forget because it was just a rehash of what they did last week. We had the same matches, New Day versus Los Lotharios and
No, correction. It is no longer New Day. Did you not notice? It's Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods.
Big E.
They took the New Day name away from him.
Yeah.
That was the only significance about the first hour of the show. Sorry, that was it. You continue.
No, that's it. We didn't gain anything. I mean, there was this really terrible segment where we found out Naomi cannot be touched by Sonya Deville. That's it.
Yeah,
that's
it.
So
she got a PPO.
No, it was a restraining order by Vince McMahon.
So it was a Vinnie Mac PPO. Yeah, PPO. Yep.
But then, so we'll move straight to hour 2, which started with Sami Zayn and his insane podcast where he had the Intercontinental Champion Nakamura and Rick Boo's out.
Our podcast is better, by the way.
Yeah, it'll last more than 5 minutes. But you know what I absolutely loved was the microphone spot with Rick Boo's where he got electrocuted. Pretty much the finish of the segment.
Yeah.
That was very creative. It was a great way to end that. It was very realistic, even though they had that silly sound. But realistically, you know, that sound could happen. But then nobody came out to check on them, on Rick after that happened, and it kind of took the realism away. Like, hey, maybe something did just happen. Maybe that was a mistake. Took the realism away.
Oh, of course, it's WWE for you.
Yeah, and I do have an exclusive news report here. I did get word that WWE Studios is working on a live action remake of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and they have cast Sami Zayn in the Yukon Cornelius gimmick.
We already know the Austin Theory is Rudolph, so
because I mean he's wearing all green and with that red bushy beard. That is Yukon Cornelius all day. Just get him a red hat.
Father Time will be played by Vince McMahon.
So I got a question for you. Seriously, serious question here. Let's say you got into a fight with somebody and they punched you in the face and you had a huge black eye and it hurt you so bad. How long would it take you to go to the doctor?
Well, if I was him, 1 week.
Why it took Madcap Moss 1 week to go to the doctor because of his eye, I have no idea. That's wrestling logic for you.
Because Madcap Moss had to get medical insurance.
Yeah, he was waiting. He was waiting to see if he was approved.
Can't get a Lloyd's of London coverage on a black eye. So
yeah. And then we find out Drew McIntyre is in the room with him, which I think is hilarious because the door to get in the room is behind them. So he was standing there the whole time.
Yeah.
It was so awkward. It was so awkward.
Then we had the worst match on the show after this. Undefeated Happy Corbin squashed Cesaro in 5 minutes.
Yeah, Cesaro's usually money whenever he's on, but they were off.
They were like, hey, Cesaro, take the night off. You know, you still got to go and wrestle, but just mentally take the night off.
Yeah. It felt like they joined it in progress. Like when they came back from the commercial, the match had already started. It was weird. But yeah, I agree with you. It was off.
Still to come is Goldberg.
No, let's not do Goldberg, please. He should not be speaking, no matter what.
Okay, so basically, every point that Michael Cole brought up in this interview, Goldberg had a counterpoint. It was pretty horrible. Then we had a recap of the Naomi Sonya As the World Turns debacle from the beginning, which led into our main event of the night, which was really the only match of the night that was really worth watching. It was I honestly, SmackDown could have cut everything up to this point and just gave us this match and went home early, and I don't think anybody really would have minded.
Yeah.
This was a great match.
It started off slow and awkward. It's like they were feeling each other out. Things were a little slow, and then it developed into a really, really good match.
I feel like that was done intentionally for the build, and if it was a great. If that was done intentionally, it was done very well.
Yeah, I was making a list of things that were slow to be executed and things that were really good, and then eventually the really good outweighed the slow 2-1.
Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, Charlotte Flair ended up getting the victory, and there were several near falls, but I think they worked well in the match.
Yeah, and I think that was the direction they needed to take, was to put Charlotte over in this match.
Yeah.
It's part of that bully campaign with Sonya Deville. I think that she's in her head, and I like where they're going with it. It's better than a lot of the women's segments that are going on right now in Raw, SmackDown, WWE in general. So, and then Ronda Rousey's music hit, and Flair raised her title in the air while standing with Deville. And then Rousey and Naomi look at him from the ring. The SmackDown goes off the air, which tells us that the match at the Elimination Chamber will be Sonya Deville and Charlotte Flair against Ronda Rousey and Naomi.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. There was the little bit of smiles after the match where Flair and Deville were beating up Naomi, and then Ronda came out. I don't think there was a reason where they needed to lay hands on Naomi. They could have just been sitting there verbally attacking her, and then Ronda could have came out. It would have saved Naomi a little bit, but that's how they ended with Ronda. That's what they wanted to do, was have her the last thing that everybody saw on TV.
Well, and WWE has a pure reputation of burying somebody to put somebody else over. So, I mean, there's always that.
That is true.
And it wasn't even her hometown. So, I mean, hey, there's that.
Yep. But like you said, outside of that main event, the rest of the show was and
the show got a D-, and the only thing that saved it grace from an F was that last match.
Yeah, I gave it a D+ overall. But that was SmackDown.
Yeah. There was not much to miss. That's why I forgot that we were doing SmackDown tonight, because it was so significant. But I definitely want to get into the state of the Michigan Indies. You and me have been to enough shows now and observed enough that I think we can make some obvious assessments with the Michigan indie scene. And this isn't bad. It's not like I'm coming at this Mr. Critical, okay? I understand that indie companies, okay, are companies that we're not expecting WWE product values out of this, okay? Hell, I'm not even expecting Ring of Honor quality values out of this. But overall, I think it's hot. I think the overall consensus of the Michigan independent scene right now is it's growing back to where it used to be. I think we were in a dark age of wrestling for quite a while, and there wasn't very many indie companies running around for a while, and they're becoming more prominent now. That's a good thing for wrestling. It's a good thing for local wrestling, and it's definitely a good thing for these local wrestlers. I came back here, and to be honest with you, when I came back to Michigan a few years back, I was like, hey, let's book some shows. And to be honest with you, there wasn't a lot of opportunity. And this was more than a couple of years. This is probably like 4 or 5 years ago. Coming back 2 years ago, I noticed there was a lot more option. Xavier had started his company, Pure Pro Wrestling, and there was other promotions actually pushing shows. And I think that that's a good thing. I think that these companies are doing good things. I think that they're getting this young talent, and they have a good source of talent combined between the companies that they can keep it fresh. And I think they keep it moving for the most part. But there's definitely some hecticness that is involved with the indies. I don't know what your opinion is on this, but that's my general consensus, is there's a lot of hecticness going on.
There seems to be this belief that we can figure it out the day of, and I don't know if that's intentional or not, but it does seem like everything seems to be put together at the last minute. We're hoping that this person's going to show up, and that might be the catalyst of what's happening. And if they don't show up, then we're going to have to change. And to me, when I was helping the Superior Wrestling Alliance, I was on the phone almost daily with talent, just ensuring that they were going to be there and making sure and getting everything that they needed to ensure that they were going to be there. And now it doesn't seem like that's happening.
No. And I mean, we're in a digital age where things should be a little bit easier. I think communication is a huge thing. Again, a lot of these companies are being run by one or two people. And I understand that it's hard to reach out, but if the best thing I can say is I feel like there's a rift, like guys have kind of lost the not all guys. So if you're an indie wrestler and you hear me saying this and you're offended, I'm probably not talking about you. You're probably will agree with me when I say this, that a lot of guys nowadays plan things out too much. They want to have this match talked out way beforehand, or they just want to go out and call it in the ring on the fly. You and I both know that is not the easiest thing to do. To go out and not even say a word to somebody and work a match, you have to be at a very veteran level to be able to do that. And generally, the guys that do that have wrestled 85,000 times with each other, and they already know what they're going to do. So there's really no point in talking.
Yeah.
But I've noticed being backstage at different shows in the last few years that it's this hodgepodge of craziness, and you'll see the card, and then like it's literally like, well, what do you want to do? Well, what do you want to do? I want to do this. I want to do this. Well, you want to do this? Okay, we'll come up to the spot, and then you guys disappear, and you don't see this guy again until it's bell time, and then you get in the ring, and you wonder why this got missed and that got missed, and this isn't right and that ain't right. Well, I mean, a 5-minute interlude with 3 spots leaves you to call the majority of that match. What happened to the times where like we used to sit down for an hour and work out a match?
Yeah.
We used to sit like, well,
there was that ability where everybody got there early, and even if the ring wasn't set up, you found the card and you talked with your match mate that day, and you went over, hey, what do you want to do? What's the story? How are we going to incorporate this? And you literally were glued at the hip for at least 25, 30 minutes. And then you went and cleared your head, got something to eat. You came back and you revisited and started bouncing ideas. But it was very common to be spending at least an hour, hour and a half just talking through your match.
If not half the day, depending on where you rank in the card.
Yeah.
I mean, anytime I ever main evented a match or had a title match, it was very serious. And, you know, you want to put on the best show that you can for your crowd and for yourself. And I think a lot of these guys get the psychology and the pride of that. I just think that communication is something that lacks between guys nowadays. I don't know if are they too worried about like pushing their t-shirts or what? Or what it is. I seen some gentlemen this weekend that were very, very obvious that they spent the time to work this match out.
Yeah.
Mad props to Alex Weir and his opponent, Adam Wick.
Adam Wick, yeah.
Adam Wick, phenomenal match of the night for that show. They got the psychology of the match. They worked out great spots. They communicated, and they worked.
Yeah,
that's how it's supposed to be. And then you see other matches, and you're like, "There's no way that these guys discussed this."
Yeah,
there's no way that this was went over. I think that lacks a lot, and it causes a lot of confusion, not only for the wrestlers in the ring, but the audience even more.
Yeah.
And this is me just being critical. So if you're an indie company or you're an indie wrestler, don't think that I'm targeting you out singly. You probably will see situations where you go, you know what, Pun's right. I see it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I heard a comment from a worker after their match. They were quite upset, and he said, you know, I didn't take the time to bump in this ring before the doors opened, and I was totally thrown off on how this ring worked. And it's just something simple like that. When you're not even prepared and you get into the ring and you have all these ideas, and then all of a sudden that first bump completely throws you off, and now you're lost. And then the next 7 minutes is just a complete loss. And I'm like, it's basic fundamentals. If you've never been in that ring, you got to walk that ring. You need to know where the good spots and the bad spots are. When
I came up to SWA and we did that first show, the first one was at the Savoy, correct? And then the second one was at the gym, and then back to the Savoy. So the first show at the Savoy, you and me spent like 3 hours in the ring that day, so I could get used to where your guys' hard spots were, where that ring bumped the best. Like, where can I hit you with that leg drop off the top rope where it's actually going to sound good?
Yeah.
Like, we worked that one stunner spot that we kept miffing. We actually, you know, it's one thing to talk about a match. It's another thing to actually go over a few spots once in a while. I think a lot of guys just nowadays, they show up, they talk out their match, and they go out and do their thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I just feel like there used to be a little bit more exaggeration on kind of having a bit more put together match. And I don't know if that's just the new style compared to us old guys or what, but I feel like our matches used to flow better.
Yeah. And I heard another comment too where somebody said, hey, it wasn't a bad match. We only had 10 minutes to put it together. And I'm thinking, we've been here for 5 hours. What have you been doing?
Yep. Socializing, selling T-shirts, taking laps around that's something else I don't agree with. I don't personally think that heel wrestlers and face wrestlers should be openly walking around the floor pre-show.
Yeah.
Intermission, if you want to take half of the building and put the heels over there and half the building and put the faces over there, go for it. But I better expect by the end of intermission, you better have like 2 guys that didn't have a match that night kind of having a run-in during intermission.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
create some
100%.
turmoil while there's an actual attack during T-shirt sales.
I'm 100% on board with you on this. This drives me insane watching everybody who just wrestled then walk over to the merch table, sit down, and it's like, oh my gosh, I get it. You're going to make money off
the
that.
IPW show, I will give props for. They didn't have user sold. If you wanted your merchandise sold, you took it to Serena Davidson, the women's champion, who runs the merchandise booth and wrestles, and she sits over there and sells merchandise all night for you.
She sells it for other people.
Yes,
perfect,
yes.
Perfect.
Yes,
that's the way it should be.
I complimented it. Like I made notes on that like that's what I want to see. There was a few guys that came out like Felix Moreno when he got the false win and had like they gave him the belt for intermission and then they kind of squashed it, which I'll talk about when I review the show. But he walked around with all intermission with the title because he was proud and like he was taking pictures and doing photo ops and all this stuff. But the whole time he was out there, the only people I seen approach him that were other wrestlers were faces. Not one heel walked up to him. And if a heel came out and there was a group of faces standing by the ring, they walked all the way around the ring and stayed away from them.
Nice.
And I was like, yes, dude, this is great.
Yeah, that doesn't happen everywhere. That's for sure.
No. I think it's more of a thing that the promoters themselves have way too much to deal with to worry about all that. I think the wrestlers themselves sometimes need to sit back and go, wait, my merchandise is set up next to the guy I'm going to wrestle tonight.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen on several occasions now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, what? These dudes just had a feud match and now they're going to go sell T-shirts at intermission together.
Yeah. It's the first time I saw that, it drove me insane. And maybe it's the old school in me, but I don't care for it. And I wouldn't allow it.
So every other word out of your trainer's mouth when you were training was the magical K word, wasn't it? Kayfabe?
Yep.
Kayfabe?
Yeah.
Kayfabe is dead in new wrestling's eyes.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the big problem with that is that new wrestling fans don't really know what kayfabe is. And that works on a pro level to a point. But at an indie level, kayfabe has to exist.
Yeah.
Kayfabe has to exist. And if you don't believe me, I could reference you to 37 hours of audio document of Jim Cornette and many other wrestling promoters explaining why kayfabe has to exist in these wrestling federations.
Yeah.
Has to. If not, what's your dichotomy?
Yeah. Your storylines for that show are not going to be held up if you don't keep kayfabe.
Stone Cold is one of the greatest wrestlers in history, in my opinion. But at the same time, he's one of the big reasons that kayfabe got muddled. He really is. Because he took away he was the first real tweener that was successful. And when a tweener got successful, the variness of heel and face kind of got muddled. And I think that people kind of lost it from there on out. And it's just gotten to where it is now. But kayfabe, it has to exist in an indie company, man. I mean, that'd have been like, do you remember when you and me split up from being a tag team?
Yeah.
Do you remember we drove 45 minutes away from Sault Ste. Marie to eat dinner that night because we didn't want anybody to see us eating dinner together?
Yep.
There was
Yeah.
27 people in the crowd. I'm sure we could have went to Denny's and been just fine. But we both had enough respect for the business that we were brought up in to keep the kayfabe.
Yep.
And when we went out to dinner, you sat on one side of the table, I sat across on the other side on the corner,
Yeah.
just to make sure if anybody did see us, hey, we're on the other side. We were friends, you know. If anybody would have brought anything up, I'd have been like, well, you know, we came up here as tag team partners, so now we're having an awkward dinner.
Yes.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. That is going to make or break a promotion success.
Do you want to know my first experience with kayfabe and how I learned what kayfabe really was?
Sure.
I was 8 years old at the Cadillac Wexford Civic Center for a WWF house show where the main draw was The Undertaker versus Yokozuna in a casket match.
Yeah, I wanted to go so bad, but I couldn't.
Amazing show. Fit Finley was probably the wrestler of the night that night. Fit Finley, believe it or not. He was a jobber back then. He had a great match, though. We met Yokozuna and Danny Davis and all these guys. And the thing is if the heels were going outside, they had their own entrance. We went to Big Boy in Cadillac after the show. And you know where they had all the heels? Out in the atrium area in the front. Where were all the faces? Oh, in the back corner.
Yeah, yeah.
They were not sitting
1, 2,
together.
3 Kid.
I met Sean Waltman. I met Bastion Booger that night. I met Yokozuna that night. Met a lot of guys that night at Big Boy.
Yeah.
And I was asking Yokozuna because I was scared of him because, I mean, he was fucking huge. I mean, I'm 8 years old and Yokozuna's 557 pounds. Like, his left leg is as big as my entire body.
Yeah.
And I kept asking him, well, aren't you friends with this guy and that guy? And he said, no, brother. I crushed his skull. We're not friends. Not even not at wrestling? No. No, you see what I did to him last week? Yeah, I did. You want me to go see him? No. Not right now. You know? Hey, Yokozuna taught me about kayfabe. It's probably one of the coolest stories I have.
Yeah.
Because I learned it at 8 years old.
Yeah.
And I always respected it after that. I think that a lot of people think that fans are completely oblivious to things, and they observe a lot more than what people think. By sitting in the crowd for the first time in 20 some years doing this podcast and not being in the locker room, you actually get to hear what the fans say.
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, like, the fans are so much more smart to the business now than what they used to be.
Yeah.
So much. So, I mean, with the kayfabe, that's one of the biggest things that I see. And some people do it right, and some people don't. I see a lot of people pushing their characters the right way, though. The mad props to these younger guys in the business. They're learning the right way. One of the kids that I met this week, his name was Solomon Solo is what he wrestles under. And I'm going to be interviewing him. But this kid looked phenomenal in the ring for being green. He's probably only been in the business a couple of years. He can't be much older than 19 years old. And this kid worked like he had been in the business for 5 years.
Yeah.
And so I was curious. So, you know, as being a wrestling guy like me, I looked him up. And then it all made sense when I figured out what wrestling school he was going to. House of Truth, Centerline, Michigan. He lives in Detroit. Makes sense.
Yeah.
That is one of the best wrestling schools in the country.
Yeah.
If you have dreams of becoming a pro wrestler and you live in the state of Michigan, go to hotwrestling.com. Hit up Truth Martini. Some of the best teachers in the business work for him. Some of the best wrestlers that will teach you the business work for him. Shameless plug. But that's another thing that gets me is these guys are being trained way more thoroughly than we ever were. I mean,
Yeah.
I hate to say it, like we were trained thorough to a point, but once we got to a certain point, it was like fly on your own, kid, figure it out.
Yep.
They do a lot better job training guys nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the best matches I've ever been a part of when I was a referee, or at the time I was a referee, was with Truth Martini. He's top notch.
Yeah. He knows the business. Not only does he know the wrestling side of the business, he knows the ring psychology, the character development, and promo work. He is all around good at what he does. Same with PPW and going down in there and working with the guys that work there, Road Rash and Xavier and his group of guys. Another good group of guys that are very centered and can teach you to get into the business the right way.
Yeah.
I do not recommend going to those fly-by-night schools ran by Mr. Anderson or other people because, like, I was trained. My first training was in a pretty rough scenario.
Yeah.
But you know about it. My first training was,
I do,
with men that I don't want to name. I will honestly give mad props to Scotty Z for training me and giving a kid a chance. I'll give mad props to Roughhouse Rob Avram for teaching me how to be a big man. I will give big props to Big Mike Wenzel and Scab and Jason Cronin. But the one guy out of that whole group that called himself a trainer and trained a lot of guys very well, but if I ever seen I would choke the life out of, Frankie the Face.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's who Jimmy Jacobs kind of credits a little bit for getting him going, unfortunately.
Well, he got me going, but then he got me going in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that even when I left the Scotty deal, I was still a Scotty guy. And he turned face on Scotty, so there was like this whole thing.
Yeah.
And I don't think he really liked me very much after that. But he was a good trainer, though. Maybe not to me, but to other guys out there. I know he had his hands in training guys like Max Morrison, for example, and guys that came out of that system. And he did a great job with those guys because they're great wrestlers. So I think I was just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time in the wrong scenario. But it's okay because Joe Ortega kind of straightened that whole situation out and got me back on the right track anyways. So, and he was a phenomenal teacher as well. Basically what I'm saying is if you want to be a pro wrestler, guys, and you're listening to podcasts like this and you're California dreaming, do a little research before you just sign up for somewhere. 100%. Do a little
do your
research.
homework.
Don't just sign up for a wrestling school because you like the wrestler. Find out who they've trained. Find out who else has been a product of that gym. And honestly, a lot of the guys, like including myself, any place that I've ever trained, AAA Academy down in Florida and everywhere else, if people want to ask me about those gyms, I'll gladly give you my opinion.
Yeah.
I'll gladly give you my opinion. Best gym I ever worked in, by the way, AAA.
Yeah, so we started off, I said, don't let me forget to tell you the Big John story. And this, I think, is very relevant to the state of wrestling and the Michigan scene right now. I broke into the business in late 97, early 98. And then I moved up to the Upper Peninsula in late 99 and actually got out of the wrestling business for about a year and then got back in again. And when I got back in, I was running with SWA, Superior Wrestling Alliance, out of Sault Ste. Marie. And I think it was like about the third show back. I had started training again and everything else. I walk in for the event and I look at the card, and the first thing on the show was a battle royal, and it said I was winning. And then just before intermission, it said the champion, Big John Holmes, versus me. I was going by Sawdust at the time. That's a different story for a different day.
Yeah.
My name was underlined. And I'm like, how am I beating the champion? Right? Like, this doesn't make any sense. It's just before intermission. So I got the story, and the idea was I'm winning the battle royal, and the battle royal gives me a title shot against anybody in the future. Well, then I come back out later in the show and I demand my title shot right now against the champion Big John Holmes. And everybody's going to think I'm going to lose, but I'm actually going to win. And I'm like, okay, that's the story that's given to me. And, I look further down on the card, no Big John, no Sawdust. We're done at intermission. And so I'm thinking I'm winning the title. I'm like, this is nuts. Like, why is this happening? I've got 3 matches in, right? So I go to Big John, and I hadn't wrestled him before. I met him in passing. We're in a couple of shows. He's the veteran by all stretches of the imagination. And I said, okay, what do you want to do out there? And he says, don't worry, kid, we'll call it in the ring. And I'm scared at this point in time, right? We'll call it in the ring. Okay. So I come back to him and I'm like, hey, no, seriously, what do you want to do out there? He's like, don't worry about it, kid. We'll call it in the ring. What are your 3 moves? So I tell him what my 3 moves are. No problem. We'll call it in the ring. Okay. So the show starts. I win the battle royal. I go out there. I go into the back and I'm like, all right, I'm just double checking. Is there anything that I need to know? And he's like, don't worry, kid. We'll call it in the ring. No problem. Okay. All right. So we go out there. I run my spot. I want my shot now, and I want Big John Holmes. So then Big John comes out. He gets the mic, says, you want a piece of me? Fine. Let's do this. Get me a referee. Referee comes out. The bell rings. We circle. We lock up. And he says, call it, kid. I'm like, what? No. This is not how it's supposed to work. I had 0 time to even prepare for this. I don't know what his moves are. And now he wants me to call this match.
Yeah.
So I did what I thought was right. I made sure that I got a little bit of an offense, and then I made him look strong. But I know I was going over. So I had to build to that moment to where people thought I was going to lose and then get a quick one on him. But little did I know this was a test. They wanted to see what I was made of. And I passed the test because what ended up happening was 4 minutes in, when we were building up, there was a run in and it was a DQ finish. They didn't tell me that part, but they had worked out something with some other people. And that's how I was going to get the victory. They
wanted to lead you to believe the whole time you were going to win the belt, just to see if you'd go out there and give an A+ performance.
Absolutely. And it was a test on Big John because he wanted to see if I could put together a match and that I could do what all the other people, all the veterans and what people frankly should be able to do in a wrestling match. Yeah. And I did. And I was structuring a match on the fly in my head, making sure that all of the things were taken care of psychology wise that made sense, where this guy that was twice as big as me, wouldn't dominate over me, because again, it's supposed to be believable that I'm going to win this championship. So it was amazing, but I don't think maybe 25% of the talent now could do that.
Right. Okay. So this is going to cut in a second because we're at our 2-minute mark. And as soon as it hits 2 minutes, we're going to lose this link. So I'm going to have to resend you another one to finish up those, because we still got more to talk about, obviously. So I'm going to let it stop here in 10 seconds, and then I'll send you another link and we'll get the other topic done and finish this one and then slowly wrap up the show, I would suppose.
Sure.
I can find ways to make this work. So.
Yep.
Oh, wow. It went over?
It did.
I don't know. I guess let's just keep going then. I thought it was going to stop.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you could always cut out a lot of AEW.
Yeah.
We talked about that for an hour.
Yeah, I know. I'll figure it out. There's some editing that can be done. But
all right, I'll pick it up here. Just ready?
Yep. 3. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't think that there's many talent nowadays that be able to do that in the independent scene because they've got to talk about everything. But that's
Do you know-
actually probably a good thing.
Do you know the first match I ever got thrown in like that?
What's that?
So my first run with like Pro Wrestling Worldwide and LSWO, all the matches were pretty thoroughly talked through. We called some spots on the fly, but most of it was pretty well put together. When I left LSWO and I went out west, I worked for this indie promotion that isn't around anymore, but used to be Rose Wrestling. Portland was Rose City, and so Rose Wrestling was like this. The exact opposite of what you thought it would be. It was pretty much like a ECW-esque company, very gritty, very just like back of a bingo hall type of thing. And like I hadn't wrestled anybody of any notoriety at that point. Like nobody big. I think the biggest guy that I wrestled up until that point was some of the local indie guys that I looked up to. You know what I mean? They weren't even that big, like JT Freeze. No, JT Freeze was a great indie wrestler.
Yeah, he was,
but he wasn't known on the level of like some of the other guys in wrestling at that point in time. And I had an opportunity to wrestle Jacob Fatu, and he called everything in the ring, and like he showed up late, so basically we couldn't talk shit out. And he's getting around and I'm like, so how are we gonna set this up, man? Like, and he was like, oh, we'll just run it on the fly. You can do that, right? And I'm like, I've never really called a match on the fly. And he was like, you can do it, dude. It's just we'll get in the motion. I'm gonna tell you right now, the first 5 minutes of that match was horrible because I didn't know how to react. Just like you were saying, like they just put you on the spot and you're like, yeah, clothesline. And you throw them into the ropes, hit a clothesline, and then it's like, what now? So you just got to keep going. And it put me in a position that I learned a lot because once you learn how to do things on the fly, it kind of comes a little more naturally. But if you've never called a match that way, I strongly don't suggest you do it in front of a big crowd. Like if you're going to try to learn how to call a match the first time, when you got one of them smaller crowds, is probably the better time to practice that, or maybe like in the gym. But no, it does work. The older guys can do it all the time. Years later, I ended up doing a spot with Scotty, and literally we called it just like that.
Yeah,
and it was easy. It was very easy, and so I can see where it has its advantages. But again, like you said, I don't think the majority of people can do that anymore. I did have the opportunity to see a couple of people who could call things on the fly, and I was very impressed by it, though. The old guard still exists, but it's just rare.
Yeah, and it's something that you need to work on. So when you do get in that situation, then you're not there at the end of the match saying, "Oh man, we only had 10 minutes to put together this match." If you only had 10 minutes to put together the match, then you can still put together a masterpiece because you can call it in the ring. Yeah, and you don't need to know what your opponent can do to have a masterpiece. You just need to know what the story is. If he's a big man and he's supposed to be dominant over you, then you can just you can put together the match that way. Or if you're supposed to find a body part and work on it, and that's the story of the match, then you can do that.
Yeah, I've called a few matches in ring with greenies because they didn't like, what do you want to do? I don't know. All day, like, what do you want? I don't know. All right, so we're going to do this. We're going to go in. We're going to do a chain spot. We're going to come out of the chain spot. You're going to throw me over the top rope, and when I go down and hit the ground, I'm going to start selling my right leg. At that point, I want you to work my right leg. I will tell you in ring 100 times to work that leg. And it worked. And eventually, he got the false comeback. He was the hometown greenie. And then I ended up getting the win, and everybody hated me. And a couple guys met me out back to want to kick my ass after the show. And which you know as well. I don't know. I've always had that heel mentality in a ring. I can work a face job, but naturally I'm a heel. Naturally, I like to make people mad at me. And I'm pretty good at it. So I always enjoyed that part. I don't like calling matches as a face, if that makes sense. I don't know if it will to you or not.
No, I got you. Yeah, it's unnatural for you.
It's unnatural for me to call the high spots. It's more natural for me to call the false comebacks.
Yeah.
Because I'm just so used to putting somebody over. So,
Yeah.
if I have to call a match, generally I'm going to try to put you over.
Yeah.
It's how I am. And if you wrestle with somebody that gets good at it, they'll try to do the same for you, and it ends up being a pretty good match. So,
yeah.
So
when
that's
it comes,
definitely. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just say when it comes to the indie scene, I am pleasantly surprised on how well a lot of these promotions are taking advantage of social media and posting on YouTube, even formatting shows to go strictly on YouTube. That to me surprised me on how well some of these people are doing that.
Yeah, the production quality of the video packages they're putting together are done very well. I'm really impressed with like PPW and IPW's presentations as far as that goes.
Yeah.
I think that honestly, like besides that, like I said, indies are hot in Michigan. The scene is hot right now. The crowds are starting to come. They may not have been as big last year, but now that COVID is really starting to die down a little bit, these crowds are starting to fill out. I don't know what the last PPW shows looked like for crowds, but I guarantee you that they weren't empty.
No, they weren't.
They may not have been sellouts, but they're not empty. And he's expanding in that market. That's going to take a minute to build a full crowd. That's a rough town. Holland is a rough town to work in. The IPW shows, as I've watched all of their recaps. I haven't been to all their shows. This was the first one I went to, but I've watched their video recaps from them doing shows at this Vandermill cider place, and I can tell you that it's went from like half seating to standing room only, which tells you, like, the people tell you if you're doing well. And I think that it would be a safe assessment to state that probably every independent company in this state has witnessed a resurgence in numbers lately. And I think that that's a positive thing. And I think it's only going to get better as the summer comes in this year. People are so tired of sitting at home. And these companies are taking advantage of that. And it's smart. Yeah. Especially with wrestling being as hot as it was, being the only sport that was really airing because of COVID.
Yeah,
that's smart. Yeah. It's a smart plan. One thing I did want to touch on is the safety of these guys. Now, you and I both know, because we've both had wrestling injuries, what happens when you get hurt in a wrestling ring in an independent show?
The show continues, but you don't.
What happens to you? Do they put you on their Blue Cross Blue Shield and go patch you up?
Absolutely not.
In a perfect world, right?
Yeah. No.
In a perfect world, that's never going to happen unless you're a contracted wrestler that has liability insurance. And none of these promoters are going to be doing anything like that. I wouldn't either. But with that being said, as promoters, you would want to put your guys in the most safe environment as possible, correct?
Yeah.
That's the hard part when it comes to indie wrestling, is you always want to put your guys in the safe place. But is it when we start doing things to replace certain things that are added to, I don't know, your bread and butter, like a wrestling ring? I'm not going to point out what company this is because I do not want to name and shame anybody. And I'm sure the wrestlers that listen to this podcast will know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's kind of good enough. But when you have chains attaching your ropes together instead of actual hooks and eyelets.
No turnbuckles.
And taped turnbuckles, and the chain that connects the posts underneath snaps in the third match.
Yeah.
You should probably stop the show and assert that your ring is okay, opposed to just continuing on the show and not even checking on it. I watched a ring recently in a company that was probably the most unsafe thing I've ever seen in my life. Had I took one bump or hit those ropes one time in that ring and the corner popped off the ground, I would have been done. Done. I love wrestling more than anything in this world. I will wrestle for free at times. I've done it 100 times in my life. I've wrestled for a sandwich and a beer, just to wrestle, just to be a part of the show. And I don't care how much money you're going to pay me. You put me in a ring like that, it'll be the last time I ever work for you. If you ever put me in a situation, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say I haven't seen anything to that degree of danger, but yeah, I've seen stuff that
Well,
you think a promoter would wanna.
Actually, there's one incident that you're not remembering, and an incident that happened in South Bend, Indiana. When we set that ring up, we never dropped it in the pocket on the side riser by the stage, and then it fell, and we had to frickin' jack the ring up with a car jack just to drop it back in the thing. That thing would have fell apart if Highlander's big ass would have got in there.
Yeah,
because we fixed it right before the Highlander spot. And I don't know, Highlander's a Michigan indie legend. If you don't know that, he is the largest man ever to wrestle. The Highlander was the biggest man in wrestling, bar none. So. And we both had the experience to get to meet the guy before he passed away.
No, you're right. I forgot all about that in South Bend.
He showed up and he did a stint for TNA for a minute after that, a small one. And he passed away a couple years after that. And I remember when he passed away, I was like, wow, that's crazy. I remember that guy, you know.
But you're right. You know, when the ring got set up, it missed getting into the slot there, and we got halfway through the show before somebody realized that there was an issue. And
somebody stepped in that corner and was like, something's not right there.
Yeah.
I think it was Mike Wenzel, to be fair. After he broke his shoulder, he said something about it.
I think it was Custom Made Man who jumped off the balcony.
Yeah, it was Custom Made Man who jumped off the balcony. That was a great show for being set up where it was, and that Juggalo kid jumping in the ring trying. Yeah.
Because the Giant Warrior was in the ring, and then everybody looked at us to go in there and get him out.
Not going in there with him.
Nope. Yeah, but you're right.
He was like, I forget. It was Armageddon. Juan was like, get in there, and I was like, no,
not with Giant Warrior.
He was like, stop him. I'm like, do you see the size of him and the size of that kid?
Yeah,
I'm more scared for the kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've been in those situations, and they stopped the show and they corrected the problem. It's just a bit concerning to me, because one time that thing falling apart, one time that post breaks, and it's not even the wrestlers at that point that you really got to be worried about. It's your audience as a liability. If you've ever seen a ring fall apart, you will know that those posts are scared. Those posts are going to go wherever they go. And if they're not connected, they're not going to fall inward.
Yeah.
If that snaps and it shoots outward, guess what? You just took out your first 2 rows of fans. That's scary to me. Just, you know, I feel like that safety should be first and foremost when you run a show like this. You don't have a lot of safety. You don't got a lot of safety measures to look at here. Does the ring sound? Okay. Are the ropes tight? Okay. We're good.
Yeah, you would think so, because you want all your workers to come back next time.
Anytime I ran a book or it was involved in anything behind the scenes, I would tell every guy that would come into the locker room, look, I want you to leave here in the same condition that you came. Bar none. Like, nobody should ever get hurt. This should never be an issue. Accidents are going to happen in wrestling. I get that. But those kind of accidents should never happen. If you can't have a better touring ring than that, maybe you need to look at reinvesting in another ring or fixing that one, because like that's bad. And honestly, like, you know what's going to happen with that ring. They're just going to keep using it.
Yeah, they won't invest in fixing the problems.
No. Most indie companies just can't afford it. Once they get up and moving, they got to try and maintain. I guess my question is at what point does safety become a concern? It's not every indie company, and I'm not out here blasting every company saying that you guys are unsafe, because you're not. Most of them are safe, and for the majority, all the shows I've seen are safe, except the exception of that one. But it still raises a major concern with me. Like, I know, Chris, if you would have seen this ring, you would have been like, "There's no way, dude. There's no way." I don't even know if you'd ref in that ring.
Yeah,
that's how bad it was.
That's scary.
So, again, I think the state of the Indies is very well. I know I'm overcritical at times, but this is my home. This is where I came from. This is where I was trained. I'm going to be overcritical on my home product. And if you think that I'm all about sunshine, rainbows, and kissing people's asses, you are listening to the wrong podcast, because I'm going to give you my honest opinion, no matter how I feel about it. Safety, that is number one with me. And when you ignore that, we have a problem. Have I addressed this problem with anybody yet? Not yet. I'm kind of thinking of the diplomatic way to bring it up to somebody, like, hey, I noticed this, and like, I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that noticed it, but me being who I am and doing what we do, I'm hoping that they take note and just fix the problem, so we don't have to report on this again, if that makes any sense.
The cat's out of the bag now. If they're listening, they're going to know.
Oh, they're going to listen, and they're going to know. And like I said, it's nothing to be a dick to them. I like their product. I like their company. I love it. But you got to keep your guys safe.
Yeah.
So fix that ring, buddy. Fix that ring. If you need some weld help, I'll come help you. Okay, I worked for MedTech for several years. I can weld. It's not a problem. Just that's concerning. Other than that, though, the state of the Indies is great. I'm really excited to see what this year brings for Michigan independent wrestling.
I agree. If you want to get into the business, there's a lot of opportunities out there. And if you're currently in the business, there's a lot of opportunities to get in the ring and get experience.
And if you're pulling a Daniel Bryan in your life like I have in the last 2 years, well, there's still a good time to come back if you're in shape.
Yeah. Yep.
That's not meant for everybody. Okay. I'm not going to list names, but you know who you are. Stay away.
Oh, yeah. Anything else you want to touch on before we get to the independent shows from this past weekend?
No, I think the other topics we can save for another day, to be honest with you. Like, we can talk wrestling for years. So, anything we don't get to on a show, I just put in the vault and throw in for another show. So yeah, no problem there. Let's get into these shows. Capital started first, if you want to go over that.
Absolutely. Capital Pro Wrestling had their Great Lakes Tag Team Title Tournament this past Saturday, February 2nd. It was in Lansing, Michigan at the Fledge. The Fledge is a very unique building. It's an old church, and it's actually set up perfect for wrestling. The wrestling ring fits wonderful in there. They can get a nice crowd in there. There's a balcony. There's a great place for the wrestlers to enter. There's a great area for the wrestlers to stage at. I mean, it's actually a really good building to hold wrestling. It is a little tight if you get a lot of fans in there, but overall the building is a great place. So next time, if you can get out to the Fledge to watch Capital Pro Wrestling, you will not be disappointed. But the way that they positioned their show, they actually filmed or recorded 5 episodes to go onto YouTube that day. So it was almost like a marathon taping back of the old NWA, Jim Crockett era stuff, where, they had storylines for the next 5 weeks planned out, and that's what the crowd got to see. So with that in mind, I'm not going to give any spoilers away. You're going to have to follow them on YouTube at Head Drop Productions. That's Head Drop Productions, HEADDROP Productions. And they'll post the new shows every week up there for the tag team title tournament. And overall, it was a pretty darn good show. They also had, a lot of singles competitions in there as well. And they did a lot of interviews and really drove storylines. It's a very old school feel. Wrestlers didn't get ring entrance music, which was very unique. It's very like NWA Power. But the tag teams that were involved in the tournament were the West Hollywood Hustlers, the Team Honey Badgers, Nasty Asteroids, which is Nick Zero and Danny Astro, the Marvelous Destiny, which is Mike Marvel and George Mack, the Grey Wolves, War Inc., the Nomads, Road Rash, Ace Evans, and then Jimmy Cox and Gutter were there. Those were the 8 teams, and one of those are going to be crowned your tag team title champion. Other people that were making appearances as well were JP Ono, one night only. Gideon Malice was there, Kip Rude, Justin Dream, Blake 182. There's several other people that were there. But overall, like I said, the event was really, really good. Um, I enjoyed myself. I was a referee as well. And I can't say enough good things about what Capital Pro is doing. They've got a really good setup. They just need to figure out their music thing. But other than that, it was fun. It was good. The person in charge took good care of everybody. It was overall good, a good experience. The fans enjoyed it. Because it was a marathon taping, it kind of waned at the end. Some of the people did leave, but it's kind of to be expected. But ultimately, we had a lot of great matches, and everybody went home at the end. If you wanted to actually follow them, you can get on their website, AmericanLuchaLibre.com. That's AmericanLuchaLibre.com. Again, it's Capital Pro Wrestling. You can also find them on Facebook, Capital Pro Wrestling. And an unexpected person showed up. Monty Brown was actually there. He didn't do anything in the ring. He did provide a little commentary on a few of the matches, but it was good to see somebody like that show up and just give some encouragement to some of the younger people. And I got a photo with him and did talk with him for a little bit about what's going on. But, overall, again, Capital Pro Wrestling was a great event. They got a lot of good things going. Their next event is going to be in a month, March 19th. They haven't released any details about where it's going to be, but I'm almost guaranteeing it's going to be at the Fledge again. So mark your calendars, March 19th, Capital Pro Wrestling. They'll be doing probably another TV taping at the Fledge. It was good. It was a good event.
Excellent. Sounds like we'll have some content of theirs to review in the future as well, because if they're putting out weekly shows and they come up on YouTube, we'll review them. We'll go buy them. So if you listen to the podcast, you might want to go over to their YouTube channel. You might want to watch these shows because we're going to be reviewing them as well. I definitely like doing the national reviews, but to be fair with you, if there's indie content, I'll take that indie content any day of the week.
Yeah,
any
absolutely.
Day. So I went on an adventure to Grand Rapids. From my house in Wayland, it's not much of an adventure, but still, I went to this venue that I had only seen the videos from, and my original thought of this place was we're going into a storage garage for a brewery. And, well, that's kind of what it was. But the way they had it set up was very unique. Like, it's set up as there's a restaurant upstairs, and you go downstairs to the wrestling venue, and downstairs it's all live. There's a DJ playing. I found out really quickly when I got there. I got to meet TVA Terry, who was the guy that I had talked to. He was very busy, very nice. This crowd was standing room only. This crowd was hot. And when I mean this crowd was hot, it was hot from the first match till the time the last bell rang and they celebrated the victor of the final match. This thing moved. They kept it going. There wasn't long pauses in between matches. It did start a little late, but I believe they started late because they were allowing the rest of the people to show up. And within about 5-10 minutes after 7, everybody had kind of filled up. There was people standing everywhere. I would say this draw was probably their best draw at Vandermilt from what I've seen on their videos. And they did not disappoint. This show was just stacked, nonstop with action. The first match started out with Derek Wolf coming out, getting the most heat that I've seen a heel get in Michigan wrestling in a while. This guy, I've seen him in PPW, and I seen him have to work a crowd in PPW, and he got it. I mean, he earned it, and he did a great job there, and it caught my eye. And when he came here, these people heard his music, and they immediately wanted to just go wring this dude's neck. And he came out and said that basically Solo was not going to fight the guy that he was supposed to fight, and they brought some other new guy out, and they had a great match. It was everything you would want in a first match, and it started off the pace to just go to an amazing pace for these matches. These two young guys kept everybody on their feet and started the pace outright. From there, it went on, and I'm going to do a full review. From there, it went on, and it took off into a few other matches, which led into one of the notoriable matches, which was Jimmy Shawlin, Jimmy the Hype Shawlin. You remember Jimmy Shawlin?
No, not by that name.
Jimmy the Human Hype Shawlin. A little past your time, I think, after you took off out of here. Dude's been around for a long time. And he tag teamed with none other than Max Morrison. And obviously, you know, I've got a little bit of history with Max Morrison myself, and so do you. And I always liked Max out of that group of guys. I don't really have much fondly to say about some of the other ones, but I never had a bad thing to say about Max Morrison. He was always a stand-up guy. He's definitely a little bigger than he used to be, but we met him when he was a kid.
Yeah.
He's older, and I don't think he recognized me at all, but they had a great match. Their spots were great. Their match reminded me of an early Roughhouse Rob and Scott Easy tag team.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of comedy, but still like a good match and had action. It was a very good match. The crowd, again, was white hot, all the way up until the match before the intermission, which was Derek Wolf taking on Felix Moreno in a dumpster match. This dumpster was nasty. They wheeled out a trash can like you put on the side of the road to get picked up by the dumpster. And there was still like stuck trash into the bottom of this thing. And I'm like, man, whoever takes the dumpster fall's not going to be happy about that. And no, they went back and forth and fought all over, and he ended up taking him to the side. And they went into the back of the brewery, and he threw him in a giant dumpster. And Felix Moreno won the Michiana title. And he was so happy that he celebrated all the way through intermission. And the crowd got behind him. He was taking pictures. Kids were giving him hugs. It was a good time. And then Derek Wolf's tag team associates came out, which were two dudes in ties. I didn't catch their names. And declared that the IPW reversed the decision because he threw him in the wrong trash can. And Felix Moreno had to give the title back and face him in a regular match, 1, 2, 3, like no, DQs involved and all of that. Obviously, Derek Wolf squashed him in 2 minutes, got his belt back, and got what he paid for. And then his associates had a match, and it was a pretty good match. They were obviously younger guys in training, but they held their own and kept the crowd going. This whole show kept the crowd going non-stop. And then we got to the last couple matches of the night. And I had been entertained this whole time. And out walks Alex Weir and Adam Wick. And these two kids put on a clinic. They will air it on YouTube at some point in time. And I suggest everybody that listens to this podcast takes the time to watch that match, because it was bar none the epitome of what you would want to see from a Michigan independent wrestling match. The sellability that Wick has for being in the business as long as he has is downright impressive. This kid understood the psychology of a match. Knowing that he's not going to win this match, he took no preservations in it, being in the business for 3 years. He put that kid over and made him look dominant at the times he needed to look dominant. He made him look weak at the moments he needed to make him look weak, and he made him look effective at the times he needed to look effective. He didn't undersell, he didn't oversell, and he made it look believable. For that, he got the Wrestler of the Night. I had pretty much decided at that point that he was probably going to get the Wrestler of the Night, and I'm going to post my video of the main event. I believe I sent you a video. I don't know, because it's Super Bowl, if you had a chance to watch it at all.
Yeah, no, I got it. I watched it.
Ren Jones came out as the defending champion for IPW against a white hot Jack Price. Jack Price had the main event at the last Vandersider show, and the crowd was behind him 1,000%. There was chants of new champ, fight forever. It was a solid wrestling match. Ren Jones, in my opinion, is the epitome of one of the top heels in Michigan wrestling. He knows how to work a crowd. He stole a chair from an old lady right from her hands. It was great. Great spot, dude. I got it on video. It's a great spot. And Jack Price overcame everything that Ren Jones threw at him in this match. There was a really good corkscrew plancha that Jack Price did to Ren Jones on the right-hand side of the ring from the video. Yeah, it was perfectly hit. I hope they got a close-up of it because it looked amazing. And it was like that the whole match. I don't know if you noticed. It was literally just high energy most of the match.
Yeah.
Ren Jones tried to favor things by any means necessary, and no matter what he threw at him, with a little bit of help from the ref, they didn't bury the ref. That was one of my huge points on this match. They did not bury this ref.
Yeah. Watching the video, it reminded me of some of the stuff we talked about on the national programs. It started slow, and they build and they build and they build until finally there was a payoff. But it wasn't the payoff; it was a fault, and they didn't take advantage of too many faults, comebacks, or close 2 counts. It was a great match from bell to bell.
Yeah, they told us the exact story they wanted to tell in this match. And I think that in the direction the IPW is heading, going back there for another show soon, it's a smart move to capitalize on the white hotness that Jack Price has right now. Because when you're running that hot, you need to run with it. You need to give him the ball, and you need to let him run with it. And I think that the decision making from IPW there was spot on. I think this was an overall great show. I gave this, for Michigan Independent Wrestling, I gave it a straight A. I think that if you want to catch these guys, the higher recommendation has definitely been to go to Vandermill Cider. They have matches in Battle Creek. If you're in the local Battle Creek area, go there and watch them. It's a great show no matter where they wrestle. But for the atmosphere and for what you're going to get and for the crowds and everything, it was one of the best experiences I've had since the Armory days in the Grand Rapids area. I think that they're going to have to get a bigger venue at some point, and that excites me with this company. That means that good things are coming for them. But these guys were very well trained. This gym, Josh, I think it's Josh Reynolds?
Josh Reynolds, yep.
The dude knows what he's doing. I don't even know the guy. I think I kind of do. I think we've met before, but I'm going to tell you right now, he's the main trainer up in there. He knows what he's doing with these guys. And the guys that he's bringing in are coming from good gyms. Yeah. So that's why the wrestling is looking so spot on. I want IPW to keep it up. They have another event on the 27th in February, I believe it is. Yep. Maybe the 27th. That's right. And that is at Battle Creek. That'll be a good show. Sarai Davidson's going to be defending her IPW Women's Championship there. I believe Jack Price will be there, as well as the wrestler of the night, Adam Wick, will be there. So, and many, many more wrestlers from the IPW roster. Some of these guys I was familiar with because some of them I've seen, whether it was at PPW or on the internet. So, it's definitely a decent company. I'm looking forward to the next Pure Pro Wrestling show that comes up too. I believe that's in March. So,
yeah. Well, good. I'm glad that IPW delivered.
They did, and I had reservations about it before I went. I won't lie. I didn't really know what to think because all I had seen is highlight videos. I hadn't seen a full match. I hadn't seen anything else. I definitely hope that the next time they're at the Vandermill Cider that there's not 2 shows and you're not booked, and maybe we can go and check it out together. Plus, then I can have a few beers and not feel like I'm being a drunk. Because when you drink by yourself, you're like a blues record. So
yeah. Okay.
They have really good beer, so They do have really good beer.
Good. Well, if I can take a second to highlight the next 3 indie shows in Michigan.
Go for it.
Okay. This Saturday, February 19th in Saginaw, UCW, Ultimate Championship Wrestling. Yep. We'll be in, again, Saginaw, Michigan, the 19th. You can get more information on Facebook. They're under UCW Bay City. Make sure you add that Bay City because there's several UCW stuff. And then the 27th, like you mentioned, IPW, Independence Pro Wrestling, will be in Battle Creek. Again, you can check Facebook for that. More information, IPW, Independence Pro Wrestling. And then Metro Pro Wrestling will be in Southgate on March 12th. So March 12th in Southgate, Metro Pro Wrestling. And again, you can check Facebook on that. You can search Metro Pro Wrestling. They've got a great card they've kind of announced for their event as well. So those are the next 3 coming up in Michigan.
And yes, it's Sunday, February 27th. Back to Full Blast in Battle Creek.
Yep.
They are promoting Derek Wolf, IPW Women's Champion, Davidson Sarai, LaDon Sanders, the Cheek Clapper, and so many more. Then I believe there is one more show that's coming up in March.
Well, there's a couple more in March. Like I said, Capital Pros running March 19th, and PPW is running Flint March sometime too. I don't remember. I can pull it up here real quick.
It's the 19th in Flint. It's PPW's Future Contenders show.
Sounds right.
Actually, as I'm looking it up, there's breaking news in Pure Pro Wrestling right now. Let's do a breaking news story. Michigan Cruiserweight Champion James Alexander will join forces with Jack Kelly's Upper Echelon in a Survivors Tag Team match against PPW's Future Contenders on 3/19 in Flint. So there's another announced event going on. There's a lot of wrestling going on in the next month, guys. You need to get out there and check it out. If you're scared or worried that you won't like it or you're intimidated by people, we're all wrestling fans. We don't bite unless you want us to. Well, at least me. But I digress. Like I said, Michigan independent wrestling is white hot right now, and we need to capitalize on it because it's a great product. And if you're a wrestling fan and all you're doing is watching wrestling on TV, you are severely missing out on some local great action. And you need to get up off your duff, and you need to get these tickets, and you need to go to these shows. It's my personal challenge to you.
Yeah. It'd be great if we could get these crowds to maximum capacity at every venue.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I love the buzz, and I love the buzz that's going around about it right now. It's a great thing. So with that being said, that is our reviews for indie wrestling today. And I believe that pretty much wraps up our show for the night.
Yeah, a couple of plugs here for just a second. If you can, check out the website, thewrestlingbytes.com. There you can listen to the latest and greatest podcast episodes. You can also see all the events happening in independent wrestling for the state of Michigan. Pure Pro Wrestling is actually going to be down in Georgia in a little bit, so that's listed on there too. If you have an event that you want to get listed on there, just go ahead and send us an email. And if you have questions or comments or concerns, you can send us an email, wrestlingbytes@gmail.com. You can also link up with us on Facebook. You can search Wrestling Bytes Podcast. We're also on TikTok at Wrestling Bytes and YouTube, Wrestling Bytes Podcast. You can find us on all of those awesome opportunities.
And on top of your regularly scheduled programs this week, we will be going live on the air Wednesday again, right? It's Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday.
Yeah,
we'll be back on the air Wednesday. But, ladies and gentlemen, sometime this week, I'm not giving a launch date on this one, but Tuesday, I have 2 scheduled interviews with our Wrestling Bytes Wrestler of the Night from IPW. We got Mr. Wick coming on, and the big feature interview from none other than Xavier Justice himself in a full feature interview. I'm going to ask the questions that nobody's ever asked him before. And I'm not talking about the size of Batista's, So, but he's got a good story, guys. He's traveled all over the world training wrestling and doing what he's loved, and he's got a positive vibe and a positive message. And I want to hear his story. So, sometime this week, I will share that story with all of you. So, tune in for that. Tune in to next week or Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday show.
New episode drops on Wednesday.
Yeah, just stay tuned. It's coming. Okay, it's coming.
Yeah.
This is what happens when we do post Super Bowl shows at 30 in the morning. But
we got to start earlier next time.
It was the Super Bowl and I won money, so I guess I can let that slide. But it was a good show. I want to appreciate and thank everybody for listening to us as we talk about the craziest wrestling nonsense that you'll ever hear in your life. And I appreciate you for coming back. Come back again next time as we have more debacle, more wrestling, and more conversations here on the Wrestling Bytes podcast. Anything to add there?
No,
Joel?
Keep it between the ropes. Nope, all good. No, I thought that was a good ending.
Yeah, all right. I'll probably cut it at that spot. But
that's perfect.
it went a little long, but I'm okay with it. I'll cut some stuff.
Is that freaking AEW? There's just so much content to talk about because it's so damn good.
It was a good show. I was very impressed by it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope that the IPW doesn't get pissed at me for bitching about their ring, but that shit's scary, dude. Like I was legitimately worried when because right after that chain snap, two big guys got in the ring, and I was just like, I don't think this ring's gonna hold, and it barely did. Like when they hit the ropes, the whole fucking post went inward 6 to 8 inches. Yeah, I've got video of it. I'll send some to you in the future, and you'll be like, "Wow, dude, that ring was literally about to fall apart." So, and the thing that shocked me, dude, is they didn't even stop the show. They just let it roll, and I'm just like, huh. And then I heard wrestlers after the show bitching about the chain snapping, and it's like, okay, I knew something was going on. So, all right, man.
I don't think they'll get pissed at you.
No, because I didn't name them. That might be the saving grace.
Yeah, nobody knows who you're talking about.
No, but they really need to do something about that. So,
well, don't stay up too late editing the show. Get some sleep.
Oh, I will.
Catch it tomorrow.
I'll probably get most of it done tonight. We'll see. It just depends on what I'm doing. I'm going to make some food here and chill out right now because it's got a process. So, yeah, I'll get it up though by tomorrow night, so we'll be good.
Cool. I'm going to bed.
All right, man. You have a good one.
All right, thanks, man. I'll catch up with you tomorrow.
It was fun as always.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a good one, man. Peace.